Chapter 426 War 7 Might of the Mage Tower. Medivh gained a lot from his trip to Draconia. His training with the dragons broadened his horizons about mana in general. The correct way to chant a spell. The correct way to cast. He learnt everything from the dragons. And had a massive improvement. However, none of that compared to the job Ridra entrusted him. Medivh always knew he was a valued member of the elites. Just like Rhino was the leader of tanks. He was the leader of mages. Of course, it was a prestigious position, and most of the guild members looked up to him. But he was not elder level inside the guild. His reliance was always limited. Hence when Ridra approached him with such a Herculean task, that was the core of the power of the elites for many years to come. Medivh was naturally taken aback. As a mana knight, Ridra could have imprinted on the mage tower, and bound it to himself if he wanted. But Ridra knew in his heart that a mage tower was meant to be operated by mages, and only a true mage could bring out the true potential behind the tower, and its boundless might. Considering that, Ridra chose the best mage from the guild to do this task, allowing Medivh to become the sole owner of the mage tower. This was the biggest opportunity of Medivh's career, as the moment he understood the powers that came with being a master of the mage tower. He understood that bar special players, like Ridra and Karna, he would be god on any battlefield. This was PvE done right. It was maximum area damage. Regretfully, he was only a tier 2 mage. Should he have been a tier 3 mage alongside this tower, he would have been completely unstoppable. However, that was not applicable in this situation, as even though he was a tier 2 mage, at this moment, facing hordes of tier 2 enemies charging at the gates of the elites, he knew that he was still god. While Ridra and the others were busy holding the enemies outside the gate, a massive change started to occur inside Purple Haze City. Lightning clouds started to form at a rate visible to the naked eye, as the entire city was slowly covered by pitch black clouds. The fact that the city was under complete lockdown made the atmosphere very eerie, as the crackle of thunder would resonate with every part of the streets of Purple Haze. In the center of the True Elites Guild Hall, massive layer of earth and dust started to fall, as the concealed mage tower started to come into view. Magic runes glittering all over its surface, blue light shining between its circuit panels, and black thunder crackling at its top. At its very peak was a massive transparent crystal cut in a symmetrical diamond shape. The mage tower looked like a structure straight out of the mist. Medivh, who was standing atop the mage tower, took his seat as the mage in charge, and immediately felt boundless mana coursing through his veins. His hair stood up and started to float as if he was in zero gravity, and a black aura concealed him, as his eyes looked completely white, without any eyeball inside. Medivh was in control now. He could focus directly into the battlefield from his position, as he was about 60-story high, and had supreme vision thanks to the mage tower. The mage tower's main function was to supplement the strength of an archmage, as to supply them with amazing pure quality mana and give them a bit of defense from rushing attackers. The basic attack functions that were loaded inside the mage tower were too weak to be considered as proper attacks for archmage. However, for Medivh, who was only a tier 2 mage, these installed attacks were heaven-defying. The mage tower was like a one large giant machine for Medivh, which he was operating right now. No different from an archer using an archballisty. The difference being that the power he could display was incomparable. Medivh knew the game plan. He knew that the moment he gained full control of the tower, he was to fire a warning shot to let the leader know that he was ready. Then 1 minute later, he was to start his defamation of enemy forces. Hence Medivh used the most basic attack logged inside the mage tower, and use a black thunder strike on the center of enemy lines as a warning shot. Suddenly pitch black clouds covered the battlefield, and a terrifying black thunder pulverized and turned 200 triad soldiers to ashes. It came out of nowhere. Nobody could understand who conjured it. Nobody had any defense for it. Ridra, who saw the black lighting, knew that it was the warning shot fired by Medivh. And after taking a one last good look at the struggling neatwit behind enemy lines, Ridra progressively retreated back towards the walls of Purple Haze City. The real show was about to start now. Ridra could easily use Blink to get back to the walls, or use Furball and Mass Teleport with the entire group back above the wall. But he chose not to do it. He chose to be on ground zero and contribute in a head-to-head fight, as he knew that the soldiers on the wall did not need him there. Ridra was regretful of the fact that Neatwit ran so deep inside enemy lines, and was visibly under a lot of trouble right now. His HP less than 20%, while he was still a good 600 meters away from Haumia's position. Clearly this was an idiotic move on both Ridra and Neatwit's part. But he could not cry over spilled condiments now, could he? The fool was going to die without exacting his revenge now. If he stayed with Ridra, eventually he would have delivered Haumia to him. But no. He had to rush on his own. Ridra decided not to think about it too much. He let it be. Otherwise this thing would continue to gnaw at his psyche. He just sighed and swore in his heart that after routing the enemy forces on this battlefield, he would drag Haomi through the streets of Purple Haze City again. Rudra had abandoned any thoughts of losing this war now. It was all about getting that root. While the Triad forces became progressively more and more concerned about what to do next, as no matter how they tried, they could not breach the Purple Haze City wall. Thousands were trying to climb the walls. Some even used each other's helps to give a bounce, and try to elevate a brother to 40 meters of height. But the moment they were thrown in the air, a merciless spear jab would ensure that they go back down. This was not the way to attack a fell-manned wall. Even if someone did land on the wall, they could not fight against an entire legion of well-trained elites and Tier 2 city forces. Hence the same outcome of death. Death and more death repeated itself for the Triad forces. Observing this war was like a nightmare for Haomi, who could feel the walls closing down on her. All the debt she had taken, all the promises of reward she had given, as she considered victory as a given, everything was coming crashing down. However, the thing she feared the most was the media across the world. This defeat would mean that the Triads would become a joke in the eyes of the world. SHE would become a joke in the eyes of the world. She could not let that happen, could she? She could not become a joke? This should not be happening to her. She was supposed to be a queen. A queen meant to rule. Haomi ordered a full charge at the elites, shouting and wailing at her subordinates. At the very least, she wanted the 6 men outside the gates dead. That's the least she wanted. Alas, the elites had not even started their true decimation of her forces yet. As Medivh was finally ready to let it rain. / I don't know what to say anymore, guys. A big thank you to Kyle Barnett for the 15,000 coins Gashapon. This support keeps me on the edge every time I write a chapter these days, as I edit and re-edit, trying to think of the best way I will write my content. Also a shout out to ZXCCD and BM for the 1000 coin gift, to Afro Rygene for 500 coin gift, to Cole Bromley for 500 coin gift, and to Omar Alsheikh for the 1000 coin gift. Thank you guys so much for the support. As for every super gift, there will be another bonus chapter soon. We are also only 60 tickets away from the next golden ticket target. So let's see if we can make that 2 more today / Chapter 427 War 8, True Might of the Elites. Medivh could clearly see the battlefield. Although he was a good 10 kilometers away from the wall, the Mage Tower had a terrifying area of effect of 100 square kilometers, which meant that the entire Triad forces were well within the zone of attack. Medivh did not completely understand the full might of the tower of whom he was the master, as he casually used one of the pre-installed moves of the tower. It was a large-scale devastation spell, called Acid Rainstorm. It was a spell that was an advanced version of the basic Tier 3 spell Acid Rain, where droplets of extremely concentrated acid would rain from clouds over a large area. This spell was not meant to be used in areas with vegetation, as most materials would combust in flames when coming in contact with this highly concentrated acid. However, the advanced version Acid Rainstorm was an even deadlier version of the same basic spell. It was a more concentrated acid, followed by terrifying winds, making the area of effect of the spell even larger. Soon, purple poisonous clouds replaced the black thunderclouds in the sky outside the walls of Purple Haze City. As the Triad forces looked above in horror, they could feel that something disastrous was about to happen. And that was indeed the case. Acid Rainstorm was classified as one of the most sinister spells in Omega, as it obliterated not only the target but also their equipment, as the rain corroded every metal it came in contact with, except for semi-legendary grade weapons. Nothing was safe from the corrosive effects of this rain. Hence, when the sizzling acid rain fell from the sky onto the armors of Triad soldiers, it made a very spooky hiss sound as it melted the armor clean. Soon panic engulfed the entire Triad forces, as they could not understand how to react against this rain. As the formations broke into utter chaos, the rain picked up intensity, as there were screams of Triads heard all throughout the battlefield when the acidic rain touched their skins and gave them third-degree severe burns. They cursed the elites like they were the devils themselves, as it was hell on earth for the Triads. The rain in itself was a massive problem for them. But Medivh did not just stop at the acidic rain. Not satisfied with only using one spell, Medivh decided to add some fire magic into the mix, as he used the tower's special move Hell's Cape. Hell's Cape was quite literally changing the landscape into boiling pits of lava representing the hell within Earth's surface. The battlefield split, as the Earth shattered, fragmenting the chaotic Triad army into small blocks of land, surrounded by a river of magma. Temperatures rose, as the boiling lava made the very air too hot to breathe for the Triads, as they had no more space to run, nowhere to hide. When the acidic rain fell inside the lava, it caused the lava to spurt out as steam compressed inside, spraying it onto players, who were already in agony from the rain. The situation became so bad that thousands of Triad soldiers chose to suicide in this situation rather than to keep suffering from the elite's torture under this overwhelmingly unfair situation. How Me and the contingent leader of Raging Thunder looked at the situation dumbfounded, as 70% of their alive army was embroiled in complete chaos. They knew Omega inside out. Even news about other continents and different factions was not unheard of. But they simply could not understand how the elites were pulling the current situation of. If the elites had such terrifying capabilities, who could dare even lay their eyes on Purple Haze City? If only he knew that it would turn out like this. He would have never agreed to help the Triads in this war at all. But what the elites were currently doing defied logic. Completely defied common sense. This mass control was broken. The game balance had shattered. Much less the Triads. There was not a single force in entire Omega who could stand up to these levels of power. Hami started to shake in fear. Uncontrollable fits started to engulf her. As the inevitability of her failure sunk in, she now realized how futile her efforts to gather a massive army were. How she spent all those money for nothing. In front of the elites, even if she had an army 10 times this size, the outcome would have been the same. The Triads had never been a match for the elites. She was blind in her attempts to try fight this guild. Hami at this moment decided that it was best to run away. Just hide, and never show her face to the public again. She wanted to just run. When she saw a very weak 2% HP elites player not far away from her location, anger flared inside Hami's eyes. Even if she was going to lose, she would at least humiliate this BA****** before she flees. Thinking so, she took 2 steps towards Nitwit, only to take 5 steps back. Every time Nitwit took a step, 10 daggers killed enemies all around him, not letting a single enemy in a 1-meter vicinity of the man. Behind Nitwit, walking through a sea of Triad soldiers, as if he was a ghost not made of matter, was a face she was all too familiar with. The face of the man who cut her nose clean off. The greatest mercenary in the world. Johnny English. Johnny was protecting Nitwit to exact his revenge on Jaime. And the Triads could do nothing but shiver, and gave way to the duo. As those who even tried to raise their weapons were dead, before their muscles could even react to their brains' orders. With Johnny as his protector, Nitwit made his way limping through the enemy lines. He knew that he would long be dead if Johnny did not come to support him. But his aura did not show it. Arrogant beyond belief. His bloodlust was so thick it was tangible in the air. He only wanted Hami to pay. Nothing more. Nothing less. Even though he was at 2% HP, barely alive, he did not even bother to drink a max HP potion. But with Johnny around, he did not need to. The Triad forces were going towards a progressive route. But Noon was done with the war. Not Medivh, who had not even started to explore the stronger spells of the Mage Tower yet. Not Nitwit, who had his revenge pending. And not Rudra, who still had a lot to show the world. The misery of the Triads had only started. They dared to attack the elites. Now they needed to face the wrath of messing with the best players in Omega. / bonus chapter for the super gift by Kyle Barnett. Thank him in the comments for this one. Also, special shout out to Oxsoccer4 for the 5,000 coin super gift. As for every super gift, there will be a bonus chapter coming soon. Also to Immortal for the 1,000 coin luxury car. We are now only 25 golden tickets away from hitting the next GT target. Hopefully we make it soon. Translating to 2 more chapters for the day. / Chapter 428 War 9 Extermination. Rudra was in awe of the power of the Mage Tower. When the team was able to procure the design of the Mage Tower from the ancient ruins in Draconia, Rudra doubted the capabilities of the design. The expected power was so destructive Rudra thought it must be a mistake when he first read it. However, seeing it now, Rudra knew that there was not one bit of exaggeration inside the ancient records. The Mage Tower was undoubtedly an object that tipped the balance of the game way too much. But Rudra knew the difficulty behind obtaining it, and knew that the team deserved this. Not factoring in Fatty Kalash's construction difficulties, and struggle for a moment. The quest to obtain the blueprint was one of the highest difficulties in the game, with a restriction on players being tier 2 and under, which was extremely unfair considering the enemies to fight were all level 200 plus monsters. Near 0 odds. That's what Rudra had pulled off with a highly trained and motivated team inside Draconia, only passing with the help of the Nine-Tailed Luna's advice. The elites had earned this. They did not get lucky with the tower. It was hard work and skills. Medivh, getting excited after the devastation left behind by the first 3 spells, decided to use a more advanced spell to wrap this up for once and for all. He decided to use the move Buddha's Palm. The acid clouds cleared out. as a beautiful blue sky shined through. The triad members who were alive rejoiced at the scene, thanking their lucky stars to survive. Some had tears in their eyes, as they could swear that they saw Buddha up above in the clouds. However, something was strange about that Buddha. It seemed like he was laughing, and his palm was becoming larger and larger. Soon panic struck the hearts of everyone watching, as the Buddha's hand kept expanding, coming at high velocity towards the ground. Already the size of 4 football stadiums, and still expanding. It was safe to say that the palm covered the entire battlefield. Boom! Buddha's palm landed, and instantly flattened hundreds of thousands of triad stragglers, effectively routing their army to the core. Only a handful of people were left alive, mostly those who were on the backmost lines, the most detached from battle. Except for that it was a complete wipe. The triad members, who were still alive, dropped their weapons as they fell on their knees, their jaws open as they could not comprehend what happened in this battle. Not one elite dead. Not one triad being able to set a single foot inside Purple Haze City. Is this even a serious fight? Considering the moves that they launched at the end, the elites could have routed them all within a few minutes had they went all out. Although not wrong, this analysis was not completely right either. Should there be any other force in the world, they would not be able to use the Mage Tower. Even with a complete design, the Mage Tower was just a massive pit for mana, as it consumed large mana stones as peanuts for its usage. The spells that Medivh was using so casually had an energy consumption equal to nearly $6 billion a spell when translating to the high-quality mana stones used. Only because the elites had the Chalice of Purity, being able to refine the low-level mana stones into peak high-quality stones, could they operate such a massive Mage Tower without worries. Else in this war they would have been $18 billion in the pit for its usage. But none of that mattered at the moment. Currently the massive Triad army was reduced to only a few hundred, who were completely broken from mind and body, their only thoughts being that to flee and quit their groups and never come back, as today's war was a mental trauma that would haunt them for life. Hami had already become insane, as the Buddha's palm was the last nail in her coffin. She tried to run, as every minion she threw towards Nitwit died miserably after having his eyes pierced by a dagger, but failed as Johnny was there to thwart that attempt. Keeping a hand out, Johnny caught the running Hami ramming into his arm's stomach first, as she curled up like a mousetrap due to impact. After that, Johnny carried her on his shoulders as she cried and wailed to be set free. She tried to stab Johnny, but he instantly became formless, dropping her flat to the ground, then stomping on her face. What Hami feared the most had started to happen, as the elites had started their humiliation of the defeated. Johnny picked Hami up again, as she hurled insults after insults on him. "How dare you touch me? Let me go! Let me go! Aw, Johnny English, you old man, I will make you pay. I will kill you! Kill you! Let me go!" Johnny paid no heed to her, but annoyed by the screaming in his ear, Johnny spanked Hami a few times to make sure she behaved. Hami became speechless, as tears escaped her eyes. She was being spanked like a little girl. There was no greater humiliation. Set down before Nitwit by Johnny, she awaited her judgment, as none of the survivors from the Triads moved a muscle to help their fallen boss. Hami looked around in desperate hopes of support, but these were the same men that in her fit of madness this past month she abused a lot physically and mentally. None of them wanted anything to do with their boss, especially knowing that this was the end of the road for her anyways. Hami cursed at them as well, calling them uncouth dogs who had no loyalty. However, her complaints fell on deaf ears, as nobody paid her any heed. Hami wanted to curse more, but when she met eyes with Nitwit, a terrifying chill went down her spine. She was scared. Scared senseless, looking at the madness in the eyes of that man. She knew her time had come. This was not someone who was willing to forgive or listen to reason. It was the end of the road for her. Everything seemed well and good for the elites, but that was not the reality. As just as one war was about to end, another was just around the corner. As Lucifer's servant and the Hazel Grove royal families and Cervantes' sworn enemy, Mazikeen was marching her forces right at the heart of Hazel Grove Empire. The war was far from over. The elites were in for a rough night. // Special shout out to Afro Rygene for the 500 coin gift, and to Omar Alsheikh for the 1000 coin gift. Thanks a lot, guys. You have really pushed the GT count extremely close to the target. Unfortunately, we did not hit it today. Bonus chapter for the super gift from Oxsucker. Thank him in the comments down below. Also, the war up till now was just a warm-up, guys. The serious fight starts later. // Chapter 429 War 10 Victory. Nitwit stared a hole through Hami, who shuddered looking at the man glare into her eyes. Nitwit said, Why? Why would you kill my aunt? What did she ever do to you? Haomi was naturally aware of the developments that occurred when Mithun sent his assassin inside the upside. Hence, she immediately blurted in her own defense. It wasn't me. It was Mithun. I had nothing to do with the assassination attempt on your aunt. I swear. I'm just a poor woman. How can I have such nasty thoughts of murder? The Triad members, who listened to these words being uttered by the maniac Haomi, wanted to choke in their own vomit. How can I have such nasty thoughts of murder? Is this the same bit who killed 200 men once just because the produce quantity was 1 kilogram less than expected in a 200-ton order? An entire plant being purged from the manager to the sweeper. Because the produce was not up to the mark. And still had the gall to say that she was a poor woman. The Triad members wanted to eat their own brains at this moment. They could not stand the shameless woman. Neatwood looked at Haomi, his bloodlust evident in his eyes. It was almost certain to Haomi that he would swing that black sword of his and chop her head off. But to her surprise, that did not happen. Neatwood took a deep breath and sighed. Regaining mental control, he looked at Johnny and said, The boss said he would parade Haomi across the streets of Purple Haze City. I can't kill her here now, can I? Let's take this back to the city and be done with it. Johnny's eyes brightened at this moment, as he had a grin plastered on his face. He too had deep grievances with Haomi. But he was mature enough to rein it in. But seeing the hot-blooded youth have the composure too, he was impressed. Haomi, however, was not impressed at all as she squirmed and screamed as Johnny carried her on his shoulders. She would rather die than be humiliated inside Purple Haze City. But her fate had been sealed. She had been defeated anyway. When Rudra saw Haomi not dead being brought back towards the wall, he raised his eyebrows in surprise. He thought for sure that Neatwood would kill her. But he was pleasantly surprised that was not the case. Rudra asked Haomi, So do you surrender? Haomi instantly blurted, I surrender. We lose. We lose. Please let me go. System notification. The war for Purple Haze City has been concluded. It is a defeat for the invading forces. As Mayor Shikuni and his guild, the True Elites, retained power over the city. Loud cheers erupted from the elite camp when the victory notification sounded all across Purple Haze City. They were dancing with joy. But a sinister smile crept up on Rudra's face as he looked at Haomi with complacency. Even after her surrender, Rudra had no desire to let her go. As with a live stream on and with millions watching worldwide, Haomi was forced another walk of shame inside Purple Haze City. As the recently free NPC citizens of Purple Haze City pelted her with rotten eggs and tomatoes. The world was shocked. Shocked by the results of the war. Shocked by the fact that indeed not a single triad was able to set a single foot inside Purple Haze City, and that at the end of the war, Haomi was dragged across the streets of Purple Haze City humiliated again. The words of the Madman Guild leader Shikuni now became daggers for everyone who ever doubted his credibility, as he delivered exactly what he promised. Word for word without deviation. It could be said that at this moment right here, the elites had their status elevated as one of the super guilds, as it was universally recognized that they were a force to reckon with. The ramifications of this victory were going to be far-fetched, especially with the stock market being integrated inside the virtual game, where the value of guilds were calculated based on their market image. Noon had a stronger image currently like the True Elites. The unofficial gray market valued the guild at a whopping $30 trillion, which meant that if Rudra was to list his guild public at this moment and sell all of his assets, he would probably be able to stand face to face with Ethan Gray as an equal with net worth. But the fact of the matter is that not only did he generate $20 trillion in wealth for himself, he also generated $10 trillion worth of wealth for Ethan Gray. As Rudra sat down and looked through the forums, he saw the entire forums buzzing about the results of this war, and how a myth had started to generate. A myth about the invincibility of the guild True Elites. Rudra smiled at the direction in which things were developing, as this is exactly what he wanted. He wanted the prestige of his organization to grow, which is why he made such bold predictions and such bold displays of power in this war. He did not need to use the Mage Tower in this war. It could have well been a secret in this war, and he could have found 100 other ways to win. But Rudra wanted to show off this time around. He wanted to make sure to let everyone know that the elites are way stronger than your imagination. As Rudra now knew what was about to come, he knew why those big guilds were the only ones chosen in his last life for the opportunity to compete, and how getting a slot in that upcoming event is extremely important for the guild. Rudra wanted to make it blatantly clear that the elites are a force that you can't mess with in this war, as he needed the guild to focus on improving itself a lot to get prepared for the event in the future. What Rudra did not expect, however, was that within 2 days' time, he would be embroiled in another brutal war, the scale of which would make this scuffle with triads look like child's play. Mazikeen and the Dark Forces had invaded Hazelgrove Kingdom, with them secretly gathering more and more forces inside the desolate Dark Forest. With 24 million troops and counting, Hazelgrove Kingdom was in for the biggest test since its inception. // Special shout out to Irail Griffin for the 1,000 coin luxury car. Thank you so much for the encouragement, brother. Also guys, why has the golden ticket growth stagnated? We only need a few more for bonus chapter. Sitting at 1425 at the time of this chapter. Can we hit 1500 today? // Chapter 430 Aftermath of the War. The elite's complete victory was a phenomenon in its own right. The idea that the size of the guild did not matter. What mattered was quality had been deeply instilled inside the minds of common players. For Tier 3 and Tier 2 guilds, the elites were their idols. Rudra, along with his bunch of misfits being able to stand up to the bullying of big guilds time after time, was a testament to his guild's strength and a reminder to the world that quality over quantity is the way to go. The biggest ramification of the elites winning the war was that the moment Rudra was back at his guild, representatives from 4 super guilds were out there awaiting terms for a negotiation. Everyone wanted to get their hands on the technology that the elites possessed, and wanted to build a cooperative alliance with the guild. However, not everything was as simple as it looked on the surface. Naturally, Rudra was allies with the Grey International Main Guild, and being bound by the same organization, amongst outsiders they naturally banded together to make a power block. At the time that Rudra's guild was still considered a second-rate guild, the battle lines amongst the superpowers had already been drawn. The New Age trillionaires, such as Ethan Gray, Roy Keane, Daniel Vettori versus the old blokes, Mithun Ambani, Elon Musk, Mark Cuban. There were also the big families and the underworld organizations. Basically one overlord guild over one kingdom. The Grey International Main Guild had the Ghost Kingdom. The elites had the Hazelgrove Kingdom, and so on. The complications involved amongst physical location of the guild and the real-world relations made the foreign affairs and politics of Omega insanely complicated. Hence, Rudra adopted a very peculiar stance to all those who wanted to meet him, and that was to dump everything on Amelia. Rudra trusted Amelia enough that he would always make the right choice for the guild, and moreover he wanted none of the headache. The only technology Rudra was willing to trade at the moment was of the manufactured archballistae, not the design. But he was willing to sell a working archballistae to allies at a discounted price. Although he labeled the price as discounted, there was nothing discount about the price, as his margins were 300%. As for the Dragonhead flamethrowers and the Dragon Screech device, the only guild Rudra was willing to lend them to, in very limited quantities, were the Grey International Main Guild. For the Mage Tower, well, everyone could go F*** themselves, as that was the most heavily protected asset of the true elites guild. Although now available for the world to see with the naked eye. The 60-story tall tower was visible from any given point inside Purple Haze City, as it towered over the entire area. The blue runes lighting up at night had already become a local attraction, as locals started to worship the tower. The concept of the Mage Tower was so novel that except for Fatty Kalash, Rudra and Mediv, Noon truly understood how exactly the structure functioned, as even within the elites who participated in building the thing, knowledge over essential components was eluded. Hence the war brought about with it an unprecedented increase in prestige and power on a world stage for the elites, as the world recognized its place as the overlords of Hazelgrove Kingdom. Internally, the war also saw Mediv being promoted to the status of an elder alongside Yum and Naomi, for the contributions made to the guild, whereas the academy pass-outs became ingrained within the guild culture after going through a war, now thoroughly enjoying the status of being an elite. The pass-outs understood how fortunate they were to be a part of the elite's organization and how influential the guild truly was. Unaware of the arrangements made by the elders of the guild, they naturally did not know the methods secured by the guild to use as trump cards into the war. Hence they came in expecting a tough fight, only to come out with an overwhelming victory. Naturally they were elated in the result. However, the celebrations were not to last for long, as a system notification rattled entire Hazelgrove Kingdom. Hazelgrove Kingdom notification: Lucifer's General Mazikeen has taken up arms against Hazelgrove Kingdom, bearing deep grudge against the current royal family of the kingdom and Emperor Cervantes. The forces of darkness have captured 13 villages in a span of 1 hour, successfully taking the village of Thal as of latest. The forces are now regrouping to launch an attack on the capital city of Purple Haze in 5 days. Where should they be? Successful in seizing the royal token from the ruling family. Then Hazelgrove Kingdom will become a dark faction-ruled country. All the current light faction players inhabiting the country will have a 90% stat debuff for 1 month, and will be ousted from their territory. Good luck, adventurers. Rudra was baffled after seeing the announcement. This event had never happened in his past life. Why was Mazikeen an end-level boss attacking Purple Haze City? And how did the forces of darkness manage to sneak inside Hazelgrove Kingdom and even seize 13 villages in 1 hour? Without anyone being any wiser? This made absolutely no sense to him, and felt like Gaia was toying with him. He had just received his share of the massive war indemnity for winning the war against the Triad Alliance. But before he could even use those funds for public development, he found himself amidst yet another war? Rudra's doubts were legitimate. If large amounts of forces could just materialize out of nowhere and gain control over territories, then what was he doing trying to build a strong foundation in Purple Haze? He might as well just pop up in the Elven Kingdom and capture Vanaheim. Rudra could not understand how this happened, but he had a strong inkling that somehow it was the Blood Merchant organization behind the scenes. And that was indeed the case. In a ritual completely suicidal, 16 Tier 4 Dark Mages and over 40,000 Tier 3 Mages used their very life essence to open a portal directly from the 7th Hell, and rallied 24 million of Mazikeen's personal forces inside the Dark Forest outside Hazelgrove Kingdom. This ritual was only possible after the Church of Darkness and the Blood Merchant organization poured considerable resources and expensive materials to facilitate the portal, but only made possible because of Mazikeen using the divine power of Lucifer as a medium. It was an event that only happened because Rudra messed up the timeline by rescuing Cervantes, completely changing the direction in which Omega was to develop. Cervantes reaching Tier 5 threatened the forces of darkness and especially Mazikeen, who knew that the expansion of Hazelgrove Kingdom would spell doom for the Devil's worshippers, hence even at the massive cost of resources and manpower in many demigod realm talents. The forces of darkness decided to intervene and take control of Hazelgrove Kingdom before Cervantes grew any stronger. With such a massive army, it was just one village after another that fell without a struggle, 13 being the count inside 1 hour, with the closest being Thal, half a day's march away from the capital Purple Haze City. However, what weighed in on Rudra's mind the most was the fact that the chosen battlefield was Purple Haze City, which by extension was his territory. A war on such a scale would spell extreme challenges for him as the owner, as most likely it would result in major damages to the infrastructure of the city in the best case, and complete annihilation in the worst case. ##$############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################ wasn't him alone who was cursing, as the entirety of Hazel Grove Kingdom was. Every single organization inside it. Every single player linked with it. It was written inside the patch notes of the 4th update that the territory a player was associated with would majorly affect them, as it was a time of globalization. At that time, nobody thought that the effect would come this way. Well, at least with the fight being inside Purple Haze City, the elites were the boss authority on the things. Or at least the mini-bosses. As the Kingdom War was definitely going to see the entire Hazel Grove army in action. And most likely the Tier 5 Emperor himself. // Alright guys. As a form of gratitude for the support you guys have showed for the book for the past week, especially the privileged readers, I will give the Riddle Coin code as a free gift this week. No riddle. No puzzles. Just the plain simple coin code. For the 10 people to redeem it first. Congratulations. For those of you who did not, well, I'll definitely post more in the next week to come. If you haven't already joined the Discord channel, please do, as I regularly host a lot of events there, and have big things planned for February. Here is the redeem code, ABA3YET4BLL9GCQA. Enjoy! // Chapter 431 Hazel Grove Kingdom Unites. The news of the invasion by the forces of darkness in Hazel Grove Kingdom sent shockwaves across the entire nation. Everyone started to flock to Purple Haze City trying to understand what to do. Being present on Ground Zero before the war started, Purple Haze City saw its most busy day in terms of visitor input, as millions of players flocked inside the city. Whether it were low-level 11-20 players, or the high 70-90 level players. Everyone from solo to first-rate guilds were present here. As with every crowd without appointed leadership, the state of Purple Haze City was utter chaos, with no single party being the leader of the entire masses. Naturally, it being Purple Haze City, the elites had the highest say, but Rudra chose not to take up the leadership position of the players on himself, as he had much important tasks at hand, as Emperor Cervantes had given a royal summon to all military personnel. The 1st Division was sent a rush order to only leave essential personnel in Fort Magma and retreat back to the capital. But Rudra, being a sensible lieutenant, only retracted 20,000 of his forces back to the capital and left 80,000 to defend Fort Magma. because he knew that Nightcloud's kingdom would not let the misfortune of Hazelgrove Kingdom slide. And Rudra was not ready to lose the very hard-won fortress and let his efforts go to waste, and he had an inkling that in this war, 80,000 troops here, or there would not really affect the final result too much. The stakes were too high, and the powers involved were too high-leveled for the Tier 2 soldiers to make too much of an impact. Rudra was worried as he walked into the royal capital with his lieutenant robes on. Everyone from entire Church of Light and officials from every corner of the kingdom were present, awaiting Cervantes to walk into the room. There were hushed talks going on all across the hall. The church members were delighted to see Rudra there, and naturally pulled him inside their huddle, talking about how preposterous the forces of darkness had become, and how the Pope had been informed of the predicament, and he will be sending help soon. Rudra learned a key information right now, which was that the Elven Kingdom had dispatched massive reinforcements to support the Hazelgrove Kingdom, and the Church of Light had dispatched 1 million paladins from the Holy City to help the kingdom. They were all going to be teleported through the teleportation array in Purple Haze City, which highlighted the importance of the elites making this infrastructure in the first place. Rudra was looking at potentially making $1 billion in teleportation fees alone. But he immediately knew that more than the teleportation fees, it was more important to score brownie points with the church. As the moment he learned of this information, he decided to waiver the teleportation fees and reserve it purely for the church's forces. The officials of the church looked at Rudra as if he was truly a devout of the church, thinking that his kindness was a blessing of the goddess herself. Rudra managed to become a saint in the church's eyes, further elevating his status as a man on the side of the righteous faction. But to be honest, he did not only do it for the church. He was sure that in some way Ruby will also come to learn of what transpired here today, and how generous her boyfriend was, letting the elven forces come to the city fast, without making any money. If it was forced on Rudra to take these steps by the state, then it would be viewed as a necessary sacrifice by the people. But him doing it voluntarily made him an angel of mankind. However, he could not bask in others' glory for long. As the hall fell silent the moment Emperor Cervantes walked in, Rudra instantly noticed that Emperor Cervantes was wearing grand clothes today, amplifying his dignity as a ruler. He was here to assure everyone and make a statement. Behind him was Patricia, who was in full-clad armor, showing that the general was ready for war. Cervantes flicked his sleeve as he took the throne, his entire personality oozing dominance of a Tier 5 ruler. The moment the emperor sat down, a courtier declared the royal court to be in session, and naturally the first order of business was the war. A lot of people wanted to speak, but before everyone, it was Cervantes who had to address the crowd. The emperor said, "Yes, the forces of darkness have invaded Hazelgrove Kingdom. The scouts report their numbers to be at 24 million. Mazikeen is personally leading the forces. The same Mazikeen with a vendetta against me and my family, for imprisoning her for centuries. She is here for the throne, and here for the destruction of our kingdom. Naturally, all those years ago, when the founder imprisoned Mazikeen, we could not kill her because we were not strong enough. But that changes now, because I am strong enough to kill her. And since she viewed White Kingdom, my people with her dirty gaze, I'll be damned if I don't gouge her eyes out before beheading her. I'm a Tier 5 warrior, and I'm going to war. So tell me, council, who is with me?" Patricia shouted, "I am." Rudra followed, "I am." The council shouted, "I am." Cervantes nodded and said, "Today's court will only focus on the war. If you don't have something constructive to contribute to the discussion, then I would advise you to shut your mouth, as I am on a very short temper today. Let the court continue." There was silence in the room now. Everyone shuddered in fear, as Noon wanted to face the wrath of the emperor. Everyone contemplated about what they wanted to say 10 times before daring to raise their hand. Naturally, the result was a very productive court session. // special shout out to iMebial for the 1,000 coin gift. Thank you so much for the patronage. Also, congratulations on hitting the golden ticket target, guys. Hence, today will be a 2-chapter day. The bonus will be out soon. // Chapter 432, The Royal Court's Verdict. Rudra patiently waited for his turn to speak. One of the problems raised during the discussion was the role of the gods chosen player in the upcoming war. Some voices amongst the council wanted to use the players as cannon fodders, as they believed the overall capabilities of players to be lacking and them being blessed with immortality. Their deaths had a lesser weight attached to it. The entire time, the councilmen made a single mistake that Rudra knew in his heart, which was that they assumed that the players would be willing to listen to the state in the war and act upon the directions they were given, which was not at all the case in reality. The player population taking part in the war was nearly 6 million. This was a huge number. which was not easy to manage, much less under a single leader. Rudra knew that it was best to appoint player leaders to lead a maximum of 250k players at once, and with a clear level bifurcation to be made to use the appropriate level of players at the appropriate place. Indeed, Rudra did not think that the Tier 0 players were in any way fit to play any role except that of cannon fodder in the war. But he was unwilling of making the truly strong player teams, like the elites and some other first-rate organizations, fight a useless fight, when they were more capable than the royal forces. Hence, deciding to voice out his concerns, Rudra spoke for the first time in the War Council. Rudra, raising a hand, immediately put a frown on the other lieutenants' faces. It was an established fact at this point that Rudra was a tactical genius, who was highly valued by the king. Plus the fact that Purple Haze City was technically managed by him, meaning that the city's defense equipment and walls were a contribution he had given to the state, greatly outshined the merits of the other lieutenants, who paled in comparison. Rudra said, "Your Highness, being a chosen myself, I can speak for my kind, that we are not united by patriotism for the country by any means. We are very selfish people who work only in our own self-interest, and currently working for the stability of the country is in alignment with our own interests, which is the only reason why you will see my kind participating in the event. Hence, I think that us thinking that the chosen would fight as instructed is a misunderstanding. The state has to provide appropriate rewards for war merit, and properly bifurcate the force in with leadership. For the part of using the chosen as cannon fodder, I do think that you have to think twice, as some chosen like myself are extremely talented and powerful, and can serve a different purpose, a more critical part in the war. Ultimately, your majesty is more experienced than me, and this is only my humble opinion. Of course, I would support the state with anything it needs." Rudra's statements brought many frowns on the faces of the council, who could not understand how impudent the player masses were to not contribute towards the nation that they lived in, at such a time of crisis. However, Rudra had spoken the naked truth, and it was a reality that the council had to realize. The earlier the better. Although many people wanted to voice out their concerns, because of the stern warning by Cervantes before the court started, everyone was silent. As to not anger the emperor, Cervantes went deep into thought, as he understood the reality behind Rudra's words. The matter of giving rewards according to merit was not difficult. It was a system naturally in policy. But Rudra was correct in his concerns, and the state needed to highlight the benefits of joining this war. Cervantes hence said, "The concern stated by First Lieutenant requires us to put some thought into it. I expect a draft of a system of merit-related benefits that the state can provide be made public for all those who voluntarily take part in this war. As for the structure in which the chosen are used in the war, I leave the matter to General One Knight and her military judgment. On to the next topic." After which the discussions moved to other aspects of the war. Although many were dissatisfied with the way the emperor handled things and envied the One Knights for their sway in the politics inside Hazelbrook Court. However, Rudra and Patricia could care less on what the others thought of them. They worked wholeheartedly for the empire, Patricia did, and did not want personal glory. Meanwhile, in the village of Thal was a charred land now, scattered on which were the burnt fleshes of the inhabitants, whose naked bones were now exposed, as bones littered the ground. If one was to say that this was a happy village just a mere hours ago, with children running across the streets and adults smiling and business blooming, the current scene would shock them. Only vultures remained, tearing pieces of flesh off the bodies of the dead, as not even a single sound was being made in the village, making it a ghost town, completely desolate. Inside the desolate town, under the moon, Mazikeen stood with her hair open, as she looked towards Purple Haze City, her red eyes gleaming with hatred, as she waited for her entire force to assemble before marching towards the capital. Mazikeen had been imprisoned for centuries by the Hazelgrove royal family, and she hated them to the bone. The kingdom of Hazelgrove had to burn. No questions about it. And with Cervantes advancing to Tier 5, Lucifer himself gave the orders to neutralize the threat before it became any larger, which was an added bonus for Mazikeen, who now had a huge force at her disposal to wage a grudge war. She desperately waited for the day she crushed the neck of Cervantes under her feet. / bonus chapter for hitting the golden ticket target. Good job, everyone. / Chapter 433, What can he do in 2 days? The reality of the situation was very difficult to swallow. During the entire court meeting, the only thing that really bothered Rudra was the lack of concrete information about enemy strength. There was only a general bifurcation available that there were approximately 23-26 million enemy forces. But the report thoroughly lacked in quality and substance. How many of the forces of darkness were Tier 1? How many were Tier 2? How many were Tier 3? How many Tier 4 warriors? Is Mazikeen the only tier 5 existence amongst the group? No solid information was available, and everything was a mystery. What means did the enemy have? Do they have long-range artillery that can cripple walls? Can Mazikeen just blow out air and wipe out a portion of the Purple Haze City wall? What will be the chosen mode of warfare? Will it be outside Purple Haze City walls? Will it be within the city? What techniques would be employed in the war? What are the key pointers to take care of before the fight? No information about these things were available at all. And Ridra hated that. He hated the fact that for once, he was not in a leadership position, and did not need to look at the bigger picture and only the part assigned to him, as the bigger picture was being seen by Emperor Cervantes. Ridra was a firm believer in the power of information. Being a reincarnator who had climbed the ranks of the game through the power of knowledge, he knew firsthand the difference of waging an intelligent war and a dumb war, and he really did not want to wage a dumb war. The sheer scale of this was meant that it was not possible to micromanage every front at which the fight was going to be happening. There would be individual fronts and individual battles breaking out at all the parts of the battlefield. If there was one key to winning this war, it was definitely the fall of Mazikeen. With Mazikeen's fall, assuming that there was no other tier 5 powerhouse within the forces of darkness, then with Emperor Cervantes sweeping the battlefield, the war was definitely going to tilt towards a Hazelgrove victory. Conversely, the fall of Emperor Cervantes would spell the end of Hazelgrove Kingdom. Ridra only had one question in his mind currently, and that was how was he going to utilize his 2 days of preparation time before the war. He was someone who was least interested in fraternizing with the other guilds of Hazelgrove Kingdom. Although he was invited to several meetings, he attended none of them, as pointless speculation was a waste of his time. Just like he suggested, a player enlistment act was given out by the kingdom, along with the sub-bifurcation of what guild had to perform what duties. This was unexpectedly good decision on the part of the kingdom, as they divided penalty and rewards fairly. The guilds that did not take part in the war were going to lose ownership of their territory, and were going to be banished from Hazelgrove Kingdom. The guilds that failed to carry out their tasks in the war were going to face heavy penalties for failing their given duty. The rewards were equally great, as the completion of the tasks gave the guilds incredibly generous merit points, which could be traded for any item from within the Hazelgrove Royal Treasury. This was a good opportunity for guilds to gain major rewards. The individual players were banded under the label of 61st, 62nd, and 63rd Division, which was headed by Viscounts of Hazelgrove Kingdom. Most of them were low-level players who had yet to join a guild, while there were very few high-level independent players. The role of this division was definitely going to be cannon fodders, and they were given a fixed amount for participating in the war, 70 silver, payable on victory. Considering that most were level 10-30 players, 30 silvers was a considerable sum for them, and a fair compensation. In this way, the massive player force was divided efficiently, and given independent tasks. The task of the true elites guild being to man the walls, and slow the advance of enemies into the city. The plan of action that Emperor Cervantes decided for the war was that him and Mazikeen were definitely going to fight outside the city, as far away from civilization as possible. The battle line would definitely be out east the city, as the Hazelgrove forces would meet the forces of darkness in the open battlefield, and only in dire situation may fall behind the walls. Emperor Cervantes did not want civilian casualties in the war, and wanted to keep the fighting away from the city for as long as possible. But he understood the strategic advantage the wall brought, especially with the inclusion of the elven forces that were to arrive, helping on the walls. Thinking so, he kept Ridra's true elites and 1st Division on the walls, alongside the elven forces, trusting his most capable lieutenant with the most important task. Emperor Cervantes only gave him one single instruction, which was to not let a single enemy behind the walls of Purple Haze City. Ridra had deja vu as Emperor Cervantes gave him this instruction, as it was a flashback for him of the war that had just passed against the Triads, where he set the same challenge for himself. However, the difficulty of the job at hand this time was monumentally more difficult than the one he did last time, as the forces of darkness were not just comprised of tier 1 and 2 players without any means to retaliate. They were a ruthless bunch set out to destroy Hazelgrove Kingdom. It would not be as simple as just keeping them in check using tricks until their numbers thinned out. It was sure to be waves after waves after waves of endless attacks. Some attacks were bound to be strong enough to cripple the walls, as although the wall was strong, there were wizards of tier 4 that could use spells like the solar beam and blast a hole straight through the wall. Ridra did not need to focus on the overall situation of the war. He only needed to hold his line for as long as he could, and kill as many enemies as he could. Hence Ridra thought of the best way to prepare for this war, and decided to do 2 things. 1. Put the entire guild into production mode and bulk purchase commodities, like arrows and potions. Rudra wanted to restock the depleted supplies of the guild after the Triad War, especially arrows to use in the Archballistae. 2. Take Johnny and SMG to scout the enemy and gauge their strength. Rudra did not have enough intel on hand to formulate enough countermeasures and prepare for the war. He needed to go and understand the position he was in firsthand, by understanding the enemy's strength and abilities. This was an extremely difficult mission, as being caught by the forces of darkness would probably spell disaster for anyone, especially when their leader was a psychotic B** who had been imprisoned for centuries. Thinking on this fact, Rudra naturally wanted to take the most capable person alongside him to scout the enemy, that man being Johnny English and SMG. Little did he know that this was the absolutely worst teammate that he could have brought to the enemy lines, as he would be caught in one disaster after another because of bringing English alongside him. However, for now, the trio set off towards the village of Thal, on their dire wolves, to scout the enemy's strength. Meanwhile in village Thal, Mazikeen also had a similar idea as to Rudra, as she sent scouts of her own to have an understanding of the upcoming battle. The forces of darkness had one single major weapon prepared that was their trump card in this fight. The name of the weapon was Lucifer's Eye. It was a magic device that could manifest the eyes of Lucifer. Lucifer had the power of petrification, which meant that those on whom Lucifer's eyes fell would be turned into stone. This obviously had limitations as such, that it was not as effective on Tier 3 individuals as it was on Tier 1, the power decreasing as the individual's prowess increased, completely being negated at Tier 4 and above. However, to be able to turn thousands of enemy soldiers into stone at once, only through a glance, was a terrifying weapon to bring to any battlefield, completely avoiding a scuffle with the cannon fodders, wiping the front of the battlefield clean. This gave their forces a tactical advantage, and the cannon fodders on the dark side would now fulfill a much pivotal role than to fight the cannon fodders of the other party. Mazikeen's forces also had a better quality of troops than the defending forces, as the soldiers from Hell were Tier 2 level 90 on average, with the better forces being at level 110 and captains being Tier 3. The only people Tier 3 in the Hazelgrove Kingdom were the lieutenants or higher military personnel, with the captain still being level 110 Tier 2, meaning that the quality of troops was inferior to Mazikeen's forces. However, both sides were in dark about the true prowess of the opposition. Hence the scouts were dispatched. Little did scouts from both sides know that even before they went to their location, they would encounter enemy scouts midway, and it would escalate into a scuffle. // Special shout out to Omar Alsheikh for the 1000 coin gift, and to Imidial for the 500 coin gift. Thank you so much for the patronage, guys. Means a lot to me. Let's keep the golden tickets flowing. Next target 4,000 tickets. Let's go // Chapter 434, a much needed reality check. On the way to Thal village, Rudra and the band met one trouble after another. Although with their strength being sufficiently high, level 40-60 beasts were not even worth a glance. Hence, despite the repeated monster confrontation, the group faced no major problem, which was until SMG suddenly warned the group of approaching people and asked them to hide and take cover from behind the trees on the side of the road. The trio observed as a group of pitch-black skinned humans with skin looking as hard as dragon scales blazed past them. Rudra immediately recognized the creature. Night demons. Nefarious creatures dwelling in the middle worlds of Hell, known for its agility and tracking abilities. Its role as a scout, judging by the direction it was headed towards, Rudra concluded that he was a spy sent to collect intel on the Purple Haze side of things, basically doing the same operation that he and the crew were, but for the other side. Rudra could naturally not let this matter go, and said, "We chase and kill." Immediately the trio changed their paths, and heavily sped to gain on the two night demons that had passed. Rudra was the one with the most speed, followed by SMG, while Johnny was the slowest of the bunch. But even so, he was steadily gaining on the night demons that were running away. When Rudra was sufficiently close, the night demons did spot his presence, and began to rush at full speed. Too bad that Rudra had blink, and it was useless, as the only thing the duo ran into was the Elden Sword, splitting their necks clean off their shoulders. The night demons had been slain. While most people would stop here, looking at the decapitated body of two demons, Rudra did not hesitate before using Thunder Blast to blast the two bodies to smithereens. As being a reincarnator, he knew something about the night demons, which was that under the moonlight, they became undead upon dying, and the last thing he wanted was two headless zombies roaming around chasing him. Hence, he completely destroyed their bodies. Johnny chuckled, while SMG frowned, not knowing the reason. He naturally found Rudra's actions to be excessive, but he quickly let it slide, as he was noon to judge the illustrious leader of the elites for such a petty thing. The trio then continued on their way towards Thal village again after the short interruption. However, what they did not know was that Mazikeen had been alerted. The moment the two scouts died, the two scouts had a spell placed on them allowing the forces of darkness to know if they were dead or alive, or captured, when the spell alerted Mazikeen about their deaths. She frowned, as there was no way the two could have reached Purple Haze City in such a short time, meaning they probably died by meeting humans en route to Purple Haze City. Alerted, Mazikeen increased patrol and dispersed counterintelligence troops on duty in the pathway that connected Thal village to Purple Haze City. She wanted to deal with the spies at the earliest and hence dispatched one of her most trusted aide on the job, a Tier 4 powerhouse, an incubus who went by the name of Rose, to hunt down the killer of the scouts. Rudra had an ominous feeling inside his heart when he was treading towards Thal village, as there was a deep frown on his face. SMG, who noticed this, asked him, "What happened?" Rudra shook his head as he said, "It's this feeling. Something is not right here. I think I am missing some." Before Rudra could complete his sentence, there was a little girl who was bleeding from her knee on the road, sitting with tears in her eyes, with her two ponytails and a very cute expression anyone's heart would move to help the little child. However, not Rudra. Not Rudra, who had an extremely cute little brother Max, who was always falling in love with one cute little girl or another, giving him a massive headache. Rudra had seen more breakups for 8-year-olds than he had seen adult drama. He was immune to the tears of heartbroken little girls, much less from injured girls suspiciously lying in the middle of the road alone and without anyone around. Rudra did not even need to use his brain to know this girl was not a girl, and this was an obvious ploy. Hence, he did not even spare a second glance at the girl, but called out for Ball and told her to blast the little girl to smithereens. Rudra did not communicate his thoughts with his teammates. Hence, when Furball suddenly used the massive flame to engulf the little crying child, Johnny and SMG yelped in fear, as they both had the same thought: the leader has gone senile. However, the moment the little girl transformed into a voluptuous woman with an exquisite dominatrix charm, both of them were rendered silent, as the two had completely contrasting thoughts. SMG thought, "Thank God for the leader. I can't believe I fell for such an obvious trick." While Johnny thought, "Ho ho ho. That's a hoe." The incubus Rose looked at the trio puzzled. She had heard that humans especially loved the young ones of their race, but these humans did not even spare a glance before attacking, clearly disrupting her whole plan. What surprised her even more was the fact that except for the old one, who was blatantly staring at her chest, the other two had absolutely no attraction towards her incredible body. This was an insult to an incubus, who was used to having men sway left and right to her whims. Yet now these men actually dared to have hostility in their eyes while looking at her. They were supposed to be on their feet groveling to kiss her heels, not glaring straight into her eyes. Rose was annoyed by these humans. Rose said, "Humans, you have angered the great General Mazikeen by killing her scouts and trying to spy on Lucifer's army. For this crime, I, Rose, the most beautiful demon from the 17th hell, sentence you to eternal damnation." For a moment there was silence, before Johnny bursted out laughing. "Ha ha 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 dot. Ha 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 ha." He patted Rudra on the back and laughed out loud, and even rolled on the floor wrenching his gut. Rudra appreciated this act by Johnny, as the moment he activated the eyes of truth, he realized the true might of this incubus, and that the three of them were not a match. Hence the task of stalling for time and pissing the opponent off was a crucial service that Johnny was doing. Rudra was extremely shocked to see that Mazikeen had sniffed their ploy out, and the news about the dead scouts had reached her so quickly, and that she even dispatched a Tier 4 army member to deal with it. Rose frowned, very annoyed with Johnny's antics, and said, "You? Human, why are you laughing?" Johnny ignored her question and breathed heavily, trying to stop his laughter and regain the oxygen his body needed. After a while saying, "You so ugly your mama probably thought you disfigured when you were born. The most beautiful demon, my ****. This insult made Rose turn red in anger, as on top of her 5 fingers, the 5 elements appeared as she used a powerful Tier 4 spell called Elemental Destruction. SMG merged into his shadow, disappearing underground, avoiding the strike, while Johnny just became formless. The only one in trouble was Rudra, who used the retractable shield to cushion the might of the spell, however still lost 4,000 HP and was sent stumbling 5 steps back. Rudra cursed, "God damn it. I need more defensive means." However, it was Rose's turn to be shocked. These 3 humans were not ordinary, and her taking them lightly only because they were very low-tiered would make her make unnecessary mistakes, as the trio were clearly capable. Thinking about this, Rose got serious, as she decided to give the fight her all. She wanted to take no chances in crippling and capturing the Trip for questioning if she could. Or just kill them and be done with it. Meanwhile in Purple Haze City, the guilds that had initially not planned on coming to the Hazelgrove Kingdom's aid were now flocking towards the city, as every registered guild had been given a task by the government, and non-compliance had heavy consequences. As a result, the streets of Purple Haze City became even more crowded than they already were as the atmosphere of the war set in. Many were excited, as this was the first kingdom-scale war that was going to happen in Omega, while the pessimistic ones were worried about losing a lot should the kingdom fall to darkness. A lot of baseless rumors and speculation floated across the streets as the masses prepared for war. However, one thing that remained unchanged through all this was the 60-story tall tower hovering over the city. It had become a widespread tourist attraction, as everyone wanted a photo under it. If only it was not war season. Most would open up a sandwich stall and start a picnic under it, while the common people admired the tower. Medivh contemplated about the power of the strongest spell of the tower, and what was the best way to use it. Medivh had a deep inkling that he needed to give his all, and the tower's all for the coming war. The best spell may need to be used, and he was right on point with that speculation. // Special shout out to Oxsoccer for the 500 coin gift. Thank you for the patronage. Guys, the golden ticket target is moving too slow. Let's pick the pace up and hit 4K as soon as possible. // Chapter 435 A Spectacular Fight. / Before the chapter starts. Yes, I made a mistake in the previous chapter when I wrote Incubus. It should have been Succubus. / Rose was given the task to deal with the scout killers, and she decided that Rudra and the others were worthy of being taken seriously. And early into the fight started to press with everything she had. Talons emerged from her back, as a part of her beautiful appearance was ruined, as she aimed for the trio's vitals. Johnny went formless, as the talons passed him by as if he was made of air. However, Rudra and SMG were not so fortunate, as the talons rammed straight into their armor. Rudra took a minuscule amount of damage, as although extremely sharp, the talons were not strong enough to pierce the Doom armor, as Rudra held the extended talons hard and gave it a pull to pull Rose off balance. Since the fight had already broken, Rudra decided to fight with all his might, as he, even though being majorly weaker, decided to attack the Tier 4 Succubus here on. Rudra charged in towards an off-balance Rose, finding a good opportunity to stab her in the chest. However, to the horror of Rudra, who was extremely fast by Tier 3 standards, he was not fast enough compared to the Tier 4 Succubus, who sent Rudra flying with a kick. The difference between Tier 3 and Tier 4 was just that large. While it took 120 levels to reach Tier 3 from, it was 120 more just to reach Tier 4 at 240. The stats of a Tier 4 Ascended were bound to be way over Rudra's inflated Tier 3 stats at level 120. Being on the receiving end of a kick that sends an opponent flying, Rudra realized this fact firsthand. He was the underdog in this fight, as even his peak was weaker than opponent's low. If Rudra was fighting one-on-one with Rose, he has less than 1% chance of beating her. But alongside Johnny and SMG, he had at least a 30% chance to take her down. Rudra, although finding no openings in the opponent's defense alone, when Johnny attacked the Succubus with 10 daggers going at her vitals, and SMG went in for the forward first attack, the rally of attacks created an opening for Rudra. The damned Succubus had 6 talons and 2 arms, meaning that she was able to block 8 of Johnny's dagger throws while avoid 2. But the movement to avoid the 2 daggers put her in a precarious position to being unable to avoid the incoming attack from SMG. However, her reaction time being marginally faster, she bent backwards just in time to avoid SMG's sword swing by mere centimeters, her right hand moving to grab SMG's sword arm to counter. But what she did not anticipate was that right behind SMG, in her blind spot, Rudra was ready to pounce in an attack, sweeping Rose off her feet, catching her completely off balance. Rudra used World Slash on Rose's neck to cause major damage. 50,000 critical hit. A message popped as Rudra was able to connect that attack, taking away 20% of the Succubus's total HP. However, Rudra could not be complacent, as he had to instantly retreat, as to not be torn apart by Rose's talons. Regaining her footing, Rose eyed the trio in absolute disgust. It was a long time since she had been injured, much less by weak humans like the one she was facing. Her mood considerably darkened, realizing the fact that she was pushed to give her best against these ant-like humans. Rose's appearance worsened even more, as her skin turned black and scales started to appear on her body, her teeth turning red, as she showed her true demonic appearance. This was her true state, the state where her defenses were the highest and her reaction time was the fastest. Johnny whistled, as he mocked Rose. Just like my girlfriend without her makeup. Rose frowned as she said, "Shut your mouth, human," as she unleashed one spell after another. The volley of spells was very difficult to defend against. The destructive power of the spells was enough to blow open a hole in the Purple Haze city wall. Much less kill Rudra and the others 3 times over. Naturally, that was if the spell connected directly. But Rudra fell back several meters from his initial location, mitigating the impact of the spell, as only large craters remained at the position he was initially standing on. In the next 2 minutes of the fight, Rudra and SMG were only madly running for their lives all the time, until SMG was not able to keep up with the pace at which the attacks were being meted out, and was killed after coming in direct contact with a peak tier 3 flame spell. Johnny annoyed the succubus to the bone, as she had no means to damage him, although Johnny could no longer pose any real threat to her as well, as only being able to throw 10 daggers, he was not able to hit the succubus. However, Rose was not able to hit him either. Neither magical spells nor physical attacks, nothing seemed to affect Johnny, who was simply formless. Annoyed, she asked Johnny, "Why do you have the cursed Ghost King's move in your arsenal? How are you two related?" Johnny laughed but said nothing, as inside his heart, he was as furious as anyone at how the fight was progressing. SMG was dead, and he was unable to even land a single blow. Ever since he started gaming, never in his life had he felt so useless as he did inside this battle. However, Rudra was only waiting for his chance. His chance to pick a spot where he could use full counter and send a damn spell back where it came from. And that chance appeared before him when Johnny decided that enough was enough and took out his cane sword and went in for the attack. For Johnny, physical fighting had become a very unfavorable option ever since he had the formlessness in his arsenal, as when he became formless, he could not keep hold of physical objects like a sword. It would drop down from his hand. Johnny could either be physically present or not, as if he wanted to attack with a sword, he had to be prepared to receive a blow as well. However, seeing Johnny charge in, the succubus naturally sent a strong spell towards Rudra and turned her complete attention towards Johnny. This gave Rudra to take the opportunity to unleash his Class Knight special move, Full Counter, sending the peak tier 3 wind spell back at Rose with double power. Rudra coupled it with a Thunder Blast and 10,000 sword cuts of his own, putting a lot of pressure on Rose to defend. With Johnny closing in irrespective of the attack spells Rudra sent towards Rose, he was having no care about his own personal safety, and only focused on giving one blow to Rose. Johnny's sword slash and Rudra's many attacks pelted Rose, as she took 70,000 in damage. However, it was not for nothing, as 60,000 damage was dealt to Johnny as well in the form of 6 talons piercing his body, who tethered in life and death with under 5% HP. The balance of the war was quickly shifting as both sides were desperate to get an edge. Rudra knew that he only had one move in his arsenal that could seal this fight. His best move, the Solar Beam. Rudra from his inventory space took out the special device that the Dwarf King had built for him. His first time bringing it out. He looked like he was wearing only one arm of the Hulkbuster Iron Man suit, as he stared Rose dead in the eye. This device was specially made so that Rudra could concentrate the power of the Sun God's bracelet without damaging his body. Made from sunstone and mana circuiting technology, it was a true work of art, doubling the Sun God's bracelet's power output, while having the power requirement. It meant that now, with a full charge, Rudra could unleash 2 solar beams instead of 1, when he had the arm equipped, which could be a major advantage in a dangerous fight such as this one. Rudra screamed at the top of his lungs, "Restrain her!" Johnny, who had witnessed the solar beam before, understood what Rudra intended to do, and even at 5% HP, he dared to do as he was required and pin Rose down so that Rudra could have a clean shot. Johnny was still a tier 2 player, unlike Rudrakarna and Neatwit, who had promoted to tier 3. Hence, for him to even last as long as he did against someone like Rose, it was a testament to his strength. Yet what Rudra asked of him was even more, and for anyone except for Johnny English, this was asking way too much. But for the #1 mercenary in the world, it was possible. Johnny's eyes flashed with radiance as he rushed in to attack the succubus. But just as Rose extended her talons to attack him, he threw his sword like a dagger and turned formless, as the sword hit the succubus while Johnny passed right through her formlessly, and throwing 10 daggers at her back the moment he passed through. Rose winced in pain as she lost another 12,000 points in HP, her overall HP now being under 50%, ringing critical alarm bells in her mind. However, it was just a tad bit late, as when she regained focus, a giant beam of light was headed her way with terrifying power, as it dented the entire road it passed through with mad power. Had Johnny not been present, she could have easily avoided this blast. But the moment she tried to dodge, she found English's arms going from under her arms to behind her neck. Johnny gave her the masterlock, pinning her to her current location. Although with the enormous strength gap, it only took 1.4 seconds for her to shake Johnny off. It was 1.4 seconds too late for her to dodge then, as Johnny turned formless, having her being the sole recipient of the devastating attack. Johnny smirked as he said bye-bye, as the new and improved solar beam, with powers as strong as a peak tier 4 spell, hit the succubus head-on, turning her to dust within mere milliseconds. In her last moments, Rose only had shock and disgust in her eyes, unable to accept losing to weak humans. What she could not understand was how a weak tier 3 human was able to conjure such a strong attack spell, and how she let herself be distracted by Johnny. However, she was never able to contemplate why it happened, as she passed away before she could. It was a win for Rudra and Johnny, but it came at a very alarming cost. The massive fight had alerted the dispatched forces of darkness in the forest's vicinity, who were closing in from all directions. Rudra and Johnny had to scurry away to save their lives. The mission was a failure. Not only did SMG die, they could still not get a true understanding of the enemy's strength, making this entire endeavor futile. Rudra had serious doubts about the coming war, his gut feeling saying that the road to victory looked bleak. If the forces of darkness could dispatch tier 4 powerhouses to deal with mere scout killers, then the strength of their army was unimaginable. Inside Hazelgrove forces there were only 3 tier 4 existences, meaning that if the enemy had more than 10, the chances of winning this war were bleak for the Hazelgrove forces. // guys, we are extremely close to hitting the golden ticket target. Let's get it ASAP. Hopefully tomorrow will be a 2-chapter day. Today's chapter is extra long, so hope you guys enjoy // Chapter 436 Trouble. Back at Purple Haze City, Rudra was the most worried he had been since reincarnating. The situation was grim. He had no information on enemy strength, and had to go in the biggest fight for the survival of the nation blind. Rudra knew that defending the wall was going to be tough. If he had enough time, he would want to create many makeshift barricades and blockades to make tactical retreats in the city possible. Holding the wall was going to be tough, and Rudra had to be prepared for the worst. However, with less than 16 hours till the war started, there was only so much that he could do. All this made Rudra extremely anxious, as this was not his way of fighting. He was a thorough planner and someone who would carefully control every aspect of a war to direct it in a manner that he wanted. However, this time around he needed to only trust his team and himself for the fight. The positive side of things was that the elves sent a lot of help, and so did the Church of Light. Combined, the two parties sent nearly 2 million troops as reinforcements, 70% of it being from the Church of Light, including 10 tier 4 paladins. This was just great news for Hazelgrove Kingdom, as it was much needed support for the country. If there was one faction that hated the forces of darkness more than the Hazelgrove Kingdom, it would be the Church or Light, sparing no cost to fight against their arch-enemy. They sent maximum support to the kingdom. The help reassured Rudra that they had at least a sliver of a chance to win this fight. The Emperor had assigned the Elven Division to cooperate with Rudra to help in the defense of the city. Hence Rudra was supposed to meet the Elven commander Robin today. Robin was the only tier 4 general deployed by the Elven forces to help Hazelgrove Kingdom, and he had 6 tier 3 lieutenants under him, including Legolas. With a familiar face in the crowd, Rudra began the meeting with Robin, discussing about the upcoming war. The person most shocked to see Rudra was Legolas, as the last time they had met Rudra was not his opponent at all. But the aura about him right now was that of someone way stronger than Legolas, a tier 3 archer. This both impressed Legolas and gave him a sense of fear from Rudra, whose growth rate was just abnormal. Robin was also extremely courteous with Rudra, even though he was a tier 4 general, and someone with more influence than Rudra. That was because Rudra was extremely famous in the Elven Kingdom, helping the kingdom and having legendary exploits at Fort Magma. He was seen as a rising hero of humanity. Rudra and Robin basically agreed on the general strategy of the war, which was to use the sturdy walls as their cover to only engage with range. With the help of the Elven Division, they could easily decimate hundreds of thousands every 10 minutes should the fight be between the ideal range of 100-300 meters from the wall. However, what Robin disagreed with Rudra on was the strategy where Rudra wanted to fight on the front lines should the infantry soldiers crumble. Robin could not understand Rudra's fears that the 5 million strong army that was supposed to fight outside the walls of the city could fall in a matter of minutes. That's not possible unless Lucifer himself descends on the battlefield, which he cannot. Rudra also knew that maybe he was being overcautious here, but he still told Robin that if the worst came to the worst, the elites will defend the walls until their last breath, that he would die before he let the fight spill into his city. If the worst came to pass, Rudra was prepared to even call in for the help of the dragons, although it would be his absolute last resort. Rudra naturally did not inform the elven forces about the true capabilities of the Mage Tower, as it was a core secret of the guild. The elites already had massive scrutiny from the Hazel Grove Kingdom players for not revealing the secrets behind their weaponry to aid in the coming war, especially the Mage Tower, the 60-story tall eye-catching structure. But Rudra absolutely did not care about that. The whole world could go take a piss, but he was never spilling the secrets to that structure. Even if it meant that the world labeled the elites as selfish and arrogant, he would rather be selfish than a moron who caves under pressure and give up the things that made his guild unique, only to improve public opinion. Meanwhile in Village of Thal, Rose died? Mazikeen said as she frowned. The loss of a Tier 4 succubus was a huge loss for any force. However, Mazikeen frowned not at the loss, but at the fact that what kind of troops did the Hazel Grove Kingdom send to be able to not only kill her scouts, but even the Tier 4 general she dispatched. The enemy was extremely capable, it seemed. And if that was the case, then she should rethink her plan of attack. Having 24.1 million troops, of which 2 million were Tier 0, 12 million were Tier 1, and nearly 10 million more were Tier 2, with over 2,000 Tier 3 captains and 26 Tier 4 generals at her side. Her human resource was incredible. Along with the Eye of Lucifer, the forces of darkness boasted an incredibly strong force strength. Having lost Rose, though, her Tier 4 general force shrank down to 25, which was by no means a small number. But a loss of a demigod was still huge. This war had to be a victory for Mazikeen, as she was ready to do everything it took to win, not wanting to take any risks. Mazikeen contacted an old friend for a favor he owed her. She contacted the King of Mutated Dragons, and had him agree to send 5 Tier 4 mutated Netherfire dragons. These dragons breathed nether fire, and dwelled within the first layer of hell, contaminated with the dark energy. They were the natural predators, or anything that had the energy of life inside it, as they hated the light. With these beasts at her disposal, Mazikeen was finally ready to take the fight to Purple Haze City. With less than 10 hours till the war started, the final push was being made. The production of supplies began its final phase, as a few hours later the forces would have to roll out, assemble, and take formation. The war against the forces of darkness was upon Hazel Grove Kingdom, and it was sure to be the largest one in the history of Omega yet. // Special shout out to iMedial for the 2,000 coin gifts, and to Irail Griffin for the 2,000 coin gift as well. Thank you so much guys for the patronage. And congratulations to everyone for hitting the golden ticket target. We are also incredibly close to hitting the Power Stone target, so hopefully we can make today a 3-chapter day. Let's get it guys! // Chapter 437 Things Go Horribly Wrong. Rudra asked one thing from Johnny, which was that if things looked difficult in the fight against Mazikeen for Emperor Cervantes, then he must help the Emperor and change the tide of the battle. Rudra was familiar with Johnny's unique skill, and in a fight with Tier 5 powerhouses where even a single breath could kill someone like him, he could only entrust the job to Johnny, who had the ability to hang in there. For the rest of the elites, they had the same goal as Rudra, to defend their city at all costs. The severity of the war was only understood by everyone when a sea of players assembled outside the north, east and west gates of Purple Haze City. 5 million on each sides to make a total of 15 million troops. The army not only consisted of players, but also paladins from the Church of Light, the Hazel Grove Royal Forces, and the various military divisions. The reserve troops behind the wall numbered nearly 5 million, and Rudra manned the wall with a total of 500,000 numerical strength, combined with his personal city forces, the elves and the elites. The total strength of the Hazel Grove forces was nearly 22 million, with a few special divisions, and about 1 million being led personally by Patricia. The number seemed incredibly impressive on paper, but it still paled in comparison to the forces of darkness, who gathered at equal numbers along these 3 fronts. Everywhere where the eye could see, one could only see seas of humans, clad in armor, waiting to fight the fight of their lives. Amongst the sea of players, there were also some cameramen and recorders who wanted to capture the footage of this incredible event and stream it live for the world to see. This was the first time Rudra actually saw the use of flags with the Hazel Grove Kingdom sigil being brought out, and the use of flag bearers to signal where the line of troops actually were. This was a concept Rudra always found funny until now, seeing the massive battlefield and swarms of people, he understood the importance of having these flags. This war was going to be chaos, and for once Rudra was not the protagonist of the event. The protagonist was undoubtedly Emperor Cervantes, who walked out to the northern side of the battlefield, his regal clothes concealing his golden armor, as he walked with an aura of dominance. At the very front of the battlefield, he put on his helmet, and stared down in the distance, where normal humans below Tier 4 could not see anything except a dense jungle. But those who had the supernatural vision understood that he was staring down at Mazikeen, who was glaring right back at the Emperor, ready to pounce on him any moment. Unlike Cervantes, who wanted to fight 1 versus 1 against Mazikeen, Mazikeen wanted to bring all her 25 Tier 4 generals to help her take down Cervantes, as she understood that the Emperor's fall would mean the fall of the army. But the real reason why she was not at the forefront of the battlefield was because she was waiting to open the fight with a bang. Lucifer's eye was being constructed deep inside enemy lines, waiting to be completed to pulverize the front half of the Hazelgrove army without the fight even starting. Only mere moments remained before the greatest war of all time started. Meanwhile, somewhere 60 kilometers away from Purple Haze City, a massive army of undead was marching towards Purple Haze City. Ghouls, Death Knights, Durahals, zombies, and even Elder Lich were seen in an army of massive size. Leading the army was the exiled prince of Hazelgrove, Amon. His once bright face was now barely having any skin as rotten stench emitted from his body. He was having a focused look as he rode a bone dragon taking to the skies. Behind him was a massive army of wyvers in the sky. The entire forest was covered with the undead, who were expected to reach Purple Haze City in just above 2 hours. This was a force that the Purple Haze City was not expecting. The southern side was unguarded, and the entire focus of the war was on the other 3 fronts. Is Amon an ally? Is he back to help Lucifer? Or is he back for his own motives? Noon knows. The two-way war just saw a third party being introduced into the mix. But both the initial sides were none the wiser. The difficulty of the war that had not yet fully started increased by another notch. On the walls of Purple Haze City, Rudra looked at the sprawling fields of men, and then thought about the legacy of Augustus one night. The one secret that Patricia had revealed to Rudra, for which purpose Rudra tried to gain as much recognition as he could from the war against the Triads. The secret that overshadowed all secrets. The ancestral power of the One Knights. The true meaning behind the explosion artist class. However, the only problem was the fact that he had signed a pact with Gaia. And should he use his abilities in this war, then Gaia would not let him go according to the pact. If he lost the war and Purple Haze City lost everything, he would still be in an equally bad position, being placed between a rock and a hard place. Rudra could only hope that the cards he had would be enough to win this war. // special shout out to Omar Alsheikh for the 5,000 coin gift. And to Irel Griffin for the 10,000 coin gift. This kind of support for my work really motivates me to work really hard to make even better content. As for every super gift, there has to be a bonus chapter, hence, there will be 2 bonus chapters ASAP. Thank them in the comments. As promised, this is the bonus chapter for hitting the golden ticket target. Hope you all enjoy. 2 more to come today. // Chapter 438 Mega War 1. The Eyes of Lucifer. Emperor Cervantes looked over his shoulders, looking at the massive army who had amassed to protect his country. He was truly grateful for all the brave warriors standing to fight the forces of darkness today. He wanted to motivate his troops, but knowing that there were millions, and not wanting to shout like a moron ruining his regal aura, he decided to instead make a grand gesture. Pointing one finger up, he said, "Paranoia." A sword chi so strong that it ripped through space itself left his finger, as it went straight into the air about 1 kilometer, before blasting with an intensity that rattled the very earth that the massive army was standing on. A cyclonic wind blew towards the forces of darkness, as the trees of the forest were uprooted from their roots, flying away with about 50,000 soldiers under the winds. With a single finger, Cervantes marked his presence on the battlefield. The millions watching his might feeling emboldened to have him at the forefront, as they looked at the forces of darkness with hostility. Due to Cervantes showing his might, the nervousness of the Hazelgrove forces was replaced with a burst of energy. Even Rudra, who was looking from top of the wall miles away, could feel his blood boiling with excitement. That was the might of a Tier 5 existence. A single finger that was not even aimed at the enemy was able to wipe out tens of thousands. This was a sovereign leading his troops from the front. A man worthy of following. Unlike what Cervantes expected, there was no response from the forces of darkness, who did not charge at the Hazelgrove army or show any signs of charging, as they only held on to their lines, regrouping at the affected areas. Cervantes felt something was wrong. Why would a force amass on the borders of Purple Haze City to not at all attack the enemy in open battle but hold their lines? This was a clear indication that they were waiting for something to happen. Some trick was at play here. Cervantes looked into the distance, seemingly where Mazikeen was supposedly hiding, and confirmed his fears that there was a bigger ploy here. However, Cervantes was not a 20-year-old kid fighting his first war. He was a veteran educated in warfare every since he was able to walk. Since Mazikeen was not present, there was none who could stop him from running wild on the battlefield. And irrespective of what the enemy was planning, Cervantes wanted to give no time to enemy forces to get their plan in motion. Cervantes unsheathed his sword, the legendary grade sword called Zenith. A gleaming silver glow was present on the sword. As Cervantes swished it in air a few times, the air was ripped into turbulent wind currents by his simple actions, which were sent towards the enemy forces, decimating their front lines, without moving a single step from his location, only doing simple movements that looked like warm-up if done by any other swordsman. In 1 minute Cervantes wiped 600,000 of the enemy troops, and he had not even gotten serious yet. The Tier 3 captains who saw their squads getting decimated tried to take matter into their own hands and launch attacking spells on Cervantes. But before they could even take an offensive step, their heads were displaced cleanly from their shoulders. At this point, Cervantes said, "Charge!" The front lines were in a mess, and he had single-handedly decimated a large portion of the frontline forces, hence providing an opportunity for the Hazelgrove forces to tear through the enemy lines. However, Cervantes was a little unlucky. As Mazikeen completed the preparations for the tower that held Lucifer's eye, the ground rumbled, as a 30-story tall single-block stone structure raised its head from the ground. Sitting on top of it was a massive ball of fire. At least it looked like a ball of fire at the first glance. But when the ball of fire started to form purple vein-like structure from the side, it started to look extremely creepy. The entire army's attention was on that massive structure, including Cervantes's, who had no idea of what it was. However, when in the scariest move of the century, a black iris suddenly rolled from the top section of the flame to the center. Everyone looking at the flaming eye got goosebumps. Then, the Hazelgrove forces met with a nightmare of a problem. Tier 0 troops staring at the eye were petrified in mere moments, turned into cold blocks of stones. Tier 1 players were having their feet turned into stone, restricting movement by 99%. They were only barely alive. While Tier 2 players had a 40% speed debuff, and Tier 3 players had a 5% debuff. Lucifer's eyes fell in the battlefield and caused a calamity that only a Tier 6 existence could do, as millions were dead, while a majority of the Hazelgrove forces, the Tier 1 players, were only sitting ducks waiting to be killed. Only a glance, and the Hazelgrove army was already on a back foot. However, Cervantes was quick in his reaction of what he needed to do. The tower had to go down, no matter what. He knew he was walking into a trap. Mazikeen was right near the tower alongside 25 Tier 4 generals, and the desperation of the situation called for Cervantes to rush in any way. An evil smirk spread on Mazikeen's face when she sensed Cervantes closing in. The initial exchange was her victory. Meanwhile, somewhere south of Purple Haze City, Prince Amon looked towards the sky, as he could feel the dark mana around him reacting to the presence of the Dark Lord. His expression remained unchanged, as he asked his bone dragon to fly higher. Gaining altitude, he was able to see the massive armies clashing miles away, and a small eye that was staring right at him. Amon felt like his heart ceased to beat for a moment when he met eyes with the devil himself, but was successful in regaining his composure. His bone dragon, however, grew more and more restless, flying erratically. Amon's aura changed as the death aura seeped from his fingers into the bone dragon, making it obedient again, after which Amon lowered the altitude and continued to fly towards Purple Haze City. He was only 1 hour away from the South Gate now. It was his homecoming. Exiled in shame, he spent his time banished from the kingdom, building his strength, expanding the number of undead he controlled. No longer having to worry about his appearance, he embraced the dead and the aura of death, taking a true step in the art of necromancy. Although looking frail, he was stronger than ever. Strong enough to shift the balance of the war completely. // Special shout out to Omar Al-Sheikh for the 15,000 coin gashapon. I'm truly gratified. So even though I give you guys this bonus chapter for the previous super gift, I still need to give you all 2 more, as I have gotten another one. But since you guys show me so much support, I would naturally not shy away. Be prepared for a War Chapters rally. And thank the patrons who made it possible in the comments section // Chapter 439 Mega War 2, The Crisis Continues. As if the damage to the Hazelgrove forces was not severe enough yet. To make matters worse, a terrifying screech was heard in the air, followed by another notification bearing bad news. System notification. You have been affected by Dragon's Fear. All stats reduced by 5%. 5 massive nether dragons roamed the skies of the battlefield, spewing out an extremely strong flame breath that melted the very earth it touched. The dragons ran rampant on the densely packed battlefield as their fires tore through the near immobilized Hazelgrove forces with ease. facing no opposition from the weak tier 1 and 2 players, who were not strong enough to pierce their armor even if they were stationary, and let the enemy hit them with their best shot. The dragons were the sovereigns of the sky. Rudra, who looked at the scene from distance, could not help but curse, his worst fears being realized, as the helpless Hazelgrove troops were being slain by the enemy forces like butter. Hundreds of thousands fell every minute, as one could see the front lines thinning with their naked eyes. However, the worst part was that the dragons were not stopping at the front line forces, charging straight towards the wall, while blasting the troops in between with nether dragon fire. 5 massive dragons coming his way. Rudra knew that even if one of the dragon managed to so as to touch the Purple Haze City wall, it would be molten stone within seconds, and he could absolutely not let the wall fall. Rudra shouted, "Mediv, you wizard! It's showtime!" He knew that only Mediv could even hope to counter these massive dragons with the Mage Tower, as the only other attack that would be even remotely useful was him using the solar beam. But it was too early in the war to use that. But just for emergencies, Rudra started to equip the arm cannon. If worst came to worst, he would definitely use it, and not let the wall melt down. Mediv, who was looking at the situation from inside the Mage Tower, was sweating buckets in nervousness. He knew he was the only one who could take the dragons down, and he had just the right spell for the job. The strongest offensive spell of the Mage Tower. The peak tier 4 spell that would even make Dragon Breath look like child's play. The ultimate fire spell Inferno. 3 beams on extremely concentrated magma temperature flamed shout out of the Mage Tower towards 3 dragons that were flying towards the city. The dragons who saw the fire incoming immediately countered with a flame of their own, making both flames collide mid-air, causing an explosion. Boom! 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 The earth rattled as smoke covered the battlefield when the 2 flames collided. Which one was the winner? Noon could know because of zero visibility. When the dust settled, it was clear that the dragons were struggling, and their fire was being pushed back, as in the next 30 seconds their flames could not even escape their mouths. As the dragons exploded mid-air, dragon body parts were sent flying all across the battlefield, as Mediv was successful in killing 3 of the 5 dragons. However, it was not good news at all. The fact remained that he was able to only kill 3 dragons, as the rest moved towards the walls of Purple Haze City. Rudra cursed. Even if he used Solar Flare, he could only take on 1 dragon. He could absolutely not take on 2. He looked from over his shoulder, as he saw the elven troops pelting the dragon with arrows, and the archballisti showering it with rounds after rounds. But to no avail. A petty damage of 1 or 5 kept appearing. The dragon barely lost any HP at all. It seemed as if the wall was going to be compromised. Meanwhile, on Emperor Cervantes' end, Cervantes launched a myriad of attacks toward the stone structure supporting Lucifer's eye. But all his attacks were blocked and deflected by tier 4 generals serving Mazikeen. 1. 2.1015202425 tier 4 generals lined up against Cervantes, and from behind them casually walked Mazikeen, swaying her hips and savoring the moment. The demonic generals bared their fangs towards Cervantes as they glared the enemy emperor, but restrained themselves from engaging in conflict, as the power Cervantes wielded was not to be underestimated. Mazikeen, looking at her sworn adversary, said, "The Supreme One is looking on my dear. Rejoice and give a good fight. You die as entertainment for him. Be proud that you lived a life to such great heights that the Lord himself had to order to kill you, and me being the ever humble and loyal subject acknowledged. For centuries your blood has tormented me. So don't expect an easy death, my emperor, as you will be humiliated, beaten and eviscerated before you beg for death before Lucifer, and the Supreme One, being the merciful Lord he is, grants you your wish, liberating you from your pain and suffering." Mazikeen wanted to say more, but when she saw Cervantes yawning, she could not contain her in rage, as she charged in to fight him, her 25 generals behind her. If not anything else, one had to give Cervantes full marks for attitude, as even in such adversity he was defiant. Defiant till the bitter end, finding himself surrounded by 25 tier 4 generals and Mazikeen herself. Cervantes naturally was hard-pressed in the fight, but to say he was helpless was wrong, as although he lost 10% of his HP in the 10 minutes the two sides fought, he has slain 3 of Mazikeen's 25 tier 4 generals. // bonus chapter for the super gift given by Irael Griffin. Thank him in the comments section for this one. Just one more to go for today, and that will be a wrap. Next chapter, Mega War 3, The Death of Johnny English // Chapter 440 Mega War 3, The Death of Johnny English. Rudra had a dark feeling rising in his heart. He was on the verge of losing his wall, as the 2 remaining dragons were hardly 25 seconds out before they made contact. Rudra could only try to take on 1, but since there were 2, he was helpless. but deciding to do whatever he could and leave the rest to fate. Rudra pointed towards the dragon nearmost to his location and activated the Sun God's bracelet. Robin, who was near Rudra, looked at the youngster pointing towards the dragon in a tense muscle stance and figured that he was going to pull something off. Hence, he decided to help as much as he could by taking a godly shot to pierce both the dragon's eyes. The nether dragon winced in pain when both his eyes were pierced by a poison arrow, as it went berserk and flew towards the wall with greater speed. Rudra waited for his moment before shouting, "Solar flare! Eat that, you ugly lizard!" As an extremely strong and concentrated beam of light traveled at light speed towards the blind dragon, as it pierced a hole straight through its neck and out the other side. Rudra's solar beam was strong enough to penetrate dragon hide and come clean through. As he killed the dragon with one single blast, Rudra was shocked at his own power. He never understood the true power of the bracelet, but seeing it now, he was shocked. What he did not know was that it was not the device, but himself who had gotten stronger. Pure mana flowed in his mana circuits, being able to draw the true capabilities of the device, while the Dwarf King's invention amplified and focused it to produce an accurate and deadly shot. A combination of all these factors made it as deadly as it was. However, even that was to no avail, as one dragon still headed towards Purple A's city walls. At 60% HP, it showed no signs of slowing down. Rudra wanted to blast out another solar beam, but he could not. He was too far, and it was too late for him. All hope seemed lost. As the nether dragon tried to take a deep breath and spew out fire to melt the Purple Haze city walls and the troops standing on it, a miracle happened. Out of nowhere, a giant dinosaur appeared and jumped to bite the dragon right in the neck, dragging the flying beast down to the ground with its massive body weight as it landed. Blood flowed out of the bite wound on the dragon, as it screeched towards the dinosaur, who roared back in response. On top the dinosaur stood one man, with his arms folded. Of course, it had to be Johnny English. Johnny said, "Okay, Mama, I know you hate these flying lizards. Let's show them what we got." As the fight between a dragon and a dinosaur started, destroying the entire terrain under them, Mama Dinosaur headbutted the dragon, who stomped on its wings, while the dragon breathed fire to hurt Mama Dinosaur. But Mama Dinosaur was only enraged more by this action, as evolution did not bless the dinosaur kind with the ability to spew fire, causing them to rot down the food chain and hide inside Earth's crust. The entire species' animosity was being meted out by Mama, who was supported by hundreds of thousands of human soldiers, continuously showering the dragon with attacks. Rudra could not believe his eyes, as he saw the scene as he yelped in joy. He knew that he could always count on Johnny English. That man was an absolute legend, riding a dinosaur as it bit a dragon to death, yet being calm about it as if it was routine. And not only did Johnny successfully stop the beast from toppling the wall, but after an arduous fight, and injuring the dragon's wings so it could not fly away, Mama Dinosaur did actually manage to kill the beast. All 5 dinosaurs were slain. Rudra at this moment said, "That man is a pillar of the guild. Exceptional beyond all means." Rudra was completely drunk on the success of Johnny English, who had an unshakable image in his mind. The man had never failed to deliver when it counted. And after saving the day, he decided to follow Rudra's instructions and help Emperor Cervantes in his battle against Mazikeen. As he left the battlefield on his Mama Dinosaur, stomping his way through enemy lines as if it was nothing, Mama was successful in bringing Johnny to the nearest vicinity of the forest that was a site of unbelievable explosions, as a fierce fight was being fought by Emperor Cervantes against the forces of darkness. Johnny retreated Mama Dino to make sure she did not die from her HP hitting 0, before slowly making his way on foot towards the battle. He observed from a distance as he saw Emperor Cervantes single-handedly push back all the Tier 4 generals of Mazikeen, but was repeatedly being hit by Mazikeen whenever she saw openings. Mazikeen was fighting absolutely dastardly, keeping her distance from the Emperor and wearing him out with constant attacks. However, Johnny could not let it go on, could he? Having absolute confidence in his formless unique move, Johnny charged in towards Mazikeen, drawing attention from the other generals. One general had blistering quick reaction to Johnny's movement, as he came in front of him within a split second and swung his giant axe towards his throat. Too bad for him. It went clean through without ever making contact, throwing him off balance. The same story happened for all the attacks the general sent Johnny's way as he moved towards Mazikeen, but it passed right through Johnny, and even damaged the generals behind. Johnny was at the center of a friendly fire chaos, making an impact on the battlefield with his mere presence, giving Emperor Cervantes the chance to defeat 5 more of Mazikeen's generals in the chaos. Feeling unstoppable, Johnny moved in striking distance of Mazikeen, but he never intended to attack, as it would mean he had to shift back to physical form. He just wanted to scare Mazikeen, create confusion and get away. However, too bad for English. As he got near Mazikeen, she looked at him tilting her head and gave him a bone-chilling smile. As she grabbed him by the throat even in his formless mode, she pulled Johnny close and looked him in the eye as she said, "You can't fool me with these parlor tricks, mortal," as she squeezed Johnny's neck, her nails digging into Johnny's flesh, killing him on the spot. Johnny English had died. Johnny English faced such a terrifying fate. Just what was the realm of Mazikeen? And was Johnny a frog in the well to think that his formless mode was unstoppable? He would not get the answers for these questions. As he stared at the black screen of his VR pod, Johnny could only wonder at where he went wrong. / bonus chapter for the 15,000 coin Gashapon by Omar Alsheikh. Thank him in the comments. That is 4 bonus chapters back to back, guys. And that's it for the day. Hope you all enjoy. / Chapter 441 Mega War 4, The Rise of the Undead Legion. Rudra was still unaware about the fact that Johnny had died. If he did learn about this disturbing piece of news, it would have definitely affected his psychology. Currently the war had taken a turn, as the Tier 4 paladins from the Holy Church and Patricia, with the One Knight's army, ran absolutely wild on the battlefield. Mazikeen, withholding all the Tier 4 generals to fight Cervantes, gave the Tier 4 forces on Hazelgrove Kingdom side an opportunity to run wild. The charge hence led by these people swiped the battlefield, as the tide of the war was definitely towards the Hazelgrove Kingdom forces. The only sad news were that the Eye of Lucifer was still monitoring the battlefield, rendering the massive Tier 1 force of millions useless for the Hazelgrove Kingdom. The only ones engaging in battle were Tier 2 and above forces, which were already superior in quality compared to the cannon fodders of the forces of darkness. However, just when it looked that if the current situation continued for about half an hour more, then a comprehensive change in the tide of war could be expected, with the Hazelgrove forces gaining an upper hand. Rudra received an extremely disturbing report from a scout, who was running madly and was completely out of breath. The scout said, Massive undead army approaching, my lord. It's Prince Amon. The army appeared from nowhere. Only 15 minutes out. Rudra's expression darkened completely after hearing this piece of information. He absolutely did not want to deal with one more enemy, when he had his hands full with just one. To make matters worse, Amon chose the only undefended side to approach Purple Haze City. The southern side had no archballistae mounted, nor any troops posted, and 15 minutes was not enough time to react and rally troops to the other side of the city to post a fight. If Amon had bad intentions for Purple Haze City, then Rudra could only say that he was as he had no means currently to deal with the army of undead. Rudra used Furball to use teleport and immediately reached on the south side of the city. As he looked over the wall to observe the huge undead army, leading it from the front, was Amon standing on top of a bone dragon. Rudra looked at Amon and used Blink to teleport right in front of the banished prince, who met Rudra's gaze eye to eye and gave the man a death smirk. But Rudra was not afraid of Amon. He had enough things on his plate in this war, and he had decided that if Amon had bad intentions for his city, then the war. He was blasting this guy at point-blank range with a solar beam. Amon said, "Just your face is enough to disgust me one night. You have no idea of how much I hate you." Rudra squinted and said, "Now is not a good time for the banished highness to make his glorious return. Why don't you try again tomorrow? The emperor is busy fighting a war, you see, and has absolutely no time to accompany you." Ha ha ha, Amon laughed out loud. He then said, "At least you don't hide your hostility for me anymore. It's better to fight an enemy from the front than have a schemer stab you in the back. Fortunately for you, I'm not here for you today. This kingdom is still my birthright, and if the ruler of hell wants to change it into his personal land of nothing, then he can kiss my. So try stay out of my way, and don't piss me off." Saying so, Amon hit Rudra with a darkness blast, but it did not have any major power, just enough to send him off the bone dragon towards the ground. Rudra was not at all angry as he was falling down from the sky. He was instead sighing in relief, as he had no idea of what he would do if Amon was indeed hostile towards the country. But if he was an ally, now that changed the entire ballgame. Feeling content, Rudra used Blink. For now, reinforcements had arrived. Meanwhile, somewhere inside the forest north of Purple Haze City, Emperor Cervantes was going all out in his fight now. And with 10 of the 25 Tier 4 generals dead, he was in a considerably better position to fight than he was at the start. The only problem being the constant high-intensity fighting was starting to take a toll on his stamina. He literally had not had a single second of breathing room since the start. And even though he was evenly matched for now, the moment he would hit his limit, he would be bombarded with attacks. Even then he grit his teeth and continued to fight with all his might. As he was the emperor, and the job was not yet done. Only when he took Mazakine's head off her shoulders, and destroyed the ugly stone tower with Lucifer's eye, and bury every single force of darkness soldier 6 feet under, would this be over. But even though his will was unyielding, his body was still starting to wear down. As if he was even a split second late in making a single moment, he would take considerable damage. Just when Cervantes hoped that from somewhere, he needed just a little breathing room. Even something useless like Johnny's interference. He could easily end 6-7 of these pests bothering him. And at exactly that moment, a large bone dragon swooped in at his location. As a man landed beside him, his very contact with the earth changed the land 30 meters around him into a dead wasteland. It was someone Cervantes was extremely familiar with. His own flesh and blood. It was Amon. Amon deflected 5 attacks coming towards Cervantes, with a skull staff in his hand returning them to the users. As he gave Cervantes exactly the breathing room he needed. Within the next 1 second 4 heads rolled as 4 more generals lost their life. And the balance of the fight entered in stalemate. At this moment Amon said, "Did you miss me, old man?" // special shout out to Cervantes 91 for the 15,000 coin gift. The patronage from the top fan always plasters a big smile on my face. And with every super gift there will be a bonus chapter right today. Hence thank him in the comments guys. // Chapter 442 Mega War 5, Trouble Never Comes announced. Rudra felt good when he saw the massive undead army take the eastern and western fronts and support the Hazelbrew forces in driving back the forces of darkness. Naturally the paladins from Church of Light were disgusted by this help, as it was evident on their faces that they were not at all comfortable in fighting alongside the dead. The two things that the church hated a lot was death and darkness. If they were asked who they hated more, it would be Lucifer and his forces of darkness. But the undead came at a close second place. However, Rudra's joy did not last very long. Apparently the stupid forces of undead could not always distinguish between friend and foe. If a demon was locked in battle with a Hazelbrew soldier, then the undead did not care if both of them were hurt, and would use a darkness blast to hit the demon, irrespective of the Hazelbrew soldier's safety. The Durahells on their skeleton horses did not care if their charge broke the compact formations of the Hazelbrew forces, as they rammed through them towards the enemies. The result was that the addition of the undead on the battlefield had more of a sheer chaos effect than a reinforcement effect. The attack lines became messy, and the formations went down the drain. As the battlefield became a free-for-all, the wyverns in the air would drop large rocks on enemies, but would sometimes crush Hazelbrew soldiers with them, making the decision of letting them be or shooting them down very difficult for Hazelbrew Kingdom soldiers. The players who had a shorter fuse than the soldiers started to turn and attack the undead as well, further increasing the overall chaos of the battlefield. Rudra, standing on the wall, had no idea of what exactly was going on at what part. The once clear humans versus demons battle lines were now just a homogeneous sea of undead, humans and demons. This resulted in the life of the archers becoming extremely hard, as they had no clear area to launch their arrows in. Although it seemed completely random, in reality, there was a method to this madness, as this was exactly what Amon wanted to do. If one assumed that he was completely changed at heart, and was here to only help the kingdom, then he/she would be a moron. Rudra, who was contemplating on how to get this situation under control, suddenly felt a strong tremor on the wall, apparently some 100 meters left of his location. A tier 3 demon, taking advantage of the chaos, tried its luck in breaking the wall with his best spell. Although unsuccessful, he managed to create a small crack on the concrete surface. The result of this action was that alarm bells started to ring in Rudra's head. With the battlefield in sheer chaos, and the elven archers having to take their sweet time to aim and kill one demon at a time, this was the best chance for the demons to attack the wall, just like that tier 3 wizard. If 50 more of them banded together, then they might create an opening in the structure. This prompted Rudra to take immediate action. He contacted Karna, and gave the elites the order to drive the entire chaotic battlefield 50 meters away from the wall, and hold a strong line of defense at that distance. Hence started the mission push back the entire war line, as the elites descended from the giant wall onto the naked battlefield, going on a complete slaughter spree. Rudra, Karna, Neatwit, these 3 battle machines completely decimated troops left, right, and center, as they single-handedly cleaned house in whatever area they were working on, slowly but surely pushing the enemy lines back. However, Rudra understood at that moment that the undead were not behaving normally, as they attacked Rudra voluntarily, even without a single demon being in his vicinity. He was disrupting the plan they had, and he was hence being heckled with Too bad for the undead. War Rudra was not to be trifled with, as the undead that were hostile to him met with the same fate as that of the demon's death. Rudra had a bad feeling in his heart now. It seemed that Prince Amon's intentions were not completely in favor of the kingdom. It seems like he had his own selfish interests at his heart. Meanwhile, against Mazikeen, the father and son duo were a force to be reckoned with, as Amon, with a very short time in exile, was exponentially stronger than before, more than holding his own in this adverse battle. Cervantes, with just a little support that he needed, could now show his true power, as he thinned the Tier 4 general count to only 8. Only the strongest of Mazikeen's Tier 4 generals were left alive. Only those who were near the peak of Tier 4 power. The rest were killed by Cervantes. Although Mazikeen was also a Tier 5 existence, her presence in the battle could be considered mediocre at best, as she did nothing noteworthy up till this point. Her only focus was to not engage directly with Cervantes, not caring if her generals died trying to fight him at close range. When it seemed like Cervantes would finally have an upper hand in battle, as the 8 generals were not strong enough to completely pin down Cervantes like before, Mazikeen issued the retreat orders to his team to avoid further casualties. Looking at this situation, Cervantes grinned. It felt like a knot was unraveling in his heart. His son was beside him in his effort to drive away the enemy of the kingdom. It seemed like everything would only improve from this moment on, as the two of them would kill Mazikeen and bring glory to the family name. Cervantes even thought about how he would take the prince back after the war, and grant him a pardon as a war hero. But what Cervantes failed to notice was the murderous gleam in Amon's eyes, as he stared at his father's back, just waiting for the opportunity to stab him. However, not yet, thought Amon. Not before killing Mazikeen and taking her powers for himself, completing the plan that he started long ago. Before that, he would help his dad slay the enemy. Meanwhile, Mazikeen had a smirk of her own, as she thought, it's exactly like my lord predicted. The brat is indeed present here. He can become the perfect vessel for my lord to occupy. / bonus chapter for the super gift by Cervantes 91. Special shout out to Omar Alsheikh for the 5,000 coin super gift. Thank you so much for the patronage. As for every super gift, there will definitely be a bonus chapter. But as it is late tonight, it will be delayed to tomorrow morning. / Chapter 443 Mega War 6, the elites steal the show. Rudra and the elites took nearly 1 hour to push the enemies 50 meters away from the wall. Definitely it was only possible with the help of Hazelgrove Kingdom forces and the elves on the walls. But nonetheless they were successful. The scene became clearer as the distance from the wall increased, as any one of the enemy forces who tried to go past that point was shot down by the elves. The line of control set up by the elites was too thin. But the purpose of the elites holding the line was not to defend the line and not let any enemy pass behind them, but to just stand as a clear differentiator in the complete chaos. If an enemy did slip behind the line of control, they would be shot down, while allies could retreat to safety. As a result, there were no opportunities for the enemy forces to launch a sneak attack to damage the integrity of the wall. Rudra was like a beast on the verge of going on a rampage, barely calm as his eyes darted from enemy to enemy, thinking of a million ways to kill them. But Rudra was a level-headed person. He knew his presence was key to holding this thin line, as he alone was equivalent of an army on the battlefield. As Yum was on the ground near him, Rudra was in his zone of buffs, making him stronger than he would be usually. However, most of the Hazelgrove forces were under a strong debuff from the Eye of Lucifer. Rudra had no idea of how the situation was with Emperor Cervantes and Prince Amon, but judging by the explosions in the faraway forest, he assumed them to be embroiled in a bitter fight. Rudra badly wanted to get rid of the massive eye towering over the battlefield, but that was not his job. He was given the job to protect Purple Haze City and hold the line of battle, hence, even if things looked bad, he could not abandon post. That's the first rule of military. He needed to trust that the Emperor would figure this out somehow. He and the elites would do whatever it took to complete the task they were given. Hence, once Rudra felt comfortable in holding the current line, he slowly called for a push. He wanted to increase the effective range of control to 200 meters away from the wall, the perfect range for archers to strike and archballistae to wreak havoc. This task was extremely difficult, especially with the undead constantly causing problems for the defending forces. But Rudra knew the importance of creating order in the battlefield again, as the more he pushed into enemy lines, the more filter-like he acted, killing undead and demons alike, but getting the Hazelgrove forces to a safe zone. More and more people started to get the message and drop back to help the elites. Slowly and steadily Rudra was restoring order in the battlefield with the elites leading the charge, now with increased backing from a focused Hazelgrove force. The elites started to display their true worth, shoulder to shoulder with first-rate guilds and top players. The elites killed more enemies than them every single minute, clearly showing the distinction between mediocre and the best. The true strength of the elites was not understood by the people of Hazel Grove while seeing it on televisions or in videos. However, now fighting shoulder to shoulder, they truly started to realize the disparity between gamers. Only the supremely talented may call themselves elite, as every elite killed 4 times as many enemies in a single minute compared to a normal player, compounded over an hour. And the kill count was incomparable. The elites were slaughter machines, more technical in their fighting style, more disciplined and having better equipment, causing envy amongst the hearts of every player witnessing them. Everyone wanted to join the elites, but the guild just would not recruit players on a mass scale. However, seeing Ridra fight, all heads had to bow. Everyone had to come to a consensus that this guy was the #1 player in the world right now, killing 4 times as many opponents in a minute as an average elite. He was an elite amongst elites. The media guys covering the war focused on the guild master of the elites slaying enemies. As the commentators around the world said, "You are watching a master at work. No special skills, no flashy moves. Yet he was unstoppable on the battlefield. Fast, agile, and incredibly powerful. If one had to describe Ridra in the war in one word, it would be inhuman." Meanwhile, against Mazikeen, Mazikeen had retreated her generals, as she tied her loose hair into a bun and took a fight stance. Her eyes shined with a hellish red gleam, as disgust for the Hazel Grove bloodline was apparent in her face. The reason why Mazikeen had not fought Cervantes yet was because she wanted to tire him out. She had long received a revelation from the Dark Lord Lucifer that he wanted to personally put an end to Cervantes, the first mortal to reach tier 4 in over 200 years. And he wanted to do it by borrowing the body of Amon. Mazikeen was only stalling to wait for Amon to appear before she went all out, because her goal was not to defeat Cervantes or kill Amon. She only had to lead them close to the Lord's Eye and prepare Amon to be taken over as a vessel. The power of darkness is very closely related to the power of death and decay, and Lucifer was very proficient in manipulating the undead. Hence, he wanted to take over a body that was strong enough to bear the weight of his soul and be able to sustain his consciousness. For this purpose, he could not go below any tier 4 power, as it would be incapable of sustaining the weight of his soul. But for Mazikeen, who hated Amon and Cervantes so much, even though she was immensely loyal to the Dark Lord, she would not let them go without a trashing. // bonus chapter for the super gift by Omar Alsheikh. Also special shout out to Magnum and Adrian Harden for the 10,000 and 5,000 coin super gifts. And one more for Omar Alsheikh for a 10,000 coin one. So, the way I look at it is 1 bonus chapter given, 3 more to go for today. This is going to be a rally. Enjoy everyone. And thank the patrons for it // Chapter 444 Mega War 7 Backstabbing. Mazikeen got serious the moment she tied her hair back. She knew she did not have to last very long in this fight. Hence started to dish out the very best moves in her arsenal right from the get-go, completely disregarding her stamina. It was in a constant bombardment of tier 4 spells, as the entire terrain changed its looks only after 1 minute of her getting started. There were no trees left for miles, as the shockwaves cut them in half and splintered them into pieces, while Cervantes was forced on the back foot just trying to defend. Amon was in a worse position, as he could only survive because Cervantes was blocking most of the attacks for him. Else, he would be mincemeat within seconds. Although he tried to conjure some spells, he found out that it was lucky enough for him to hide behind his father's back and be alive. Asking any more in this fight between tier 5 powerhouses, he was out of his league. In terms of strength, Cervantes was above Mazikeen, and Mazikeen knew it too, as she could only ascend to tier 5 because of the help of the Dark Lord. Otherwise, with her potential, she would have never been tier 5. Hence, compared to Cervantes, the genuinely self-ascended tier 5 existence, she was nothing. Even though burning with hatred for the Hazel Grove royal family, for all the suffering she had under their imprisonment, she did not try and attack the kingdom without thought the moment she got free, because she was afraid of Cervantes and the fact that she was not as strong as he was. But when the prophet assured the Dark Lord of the future to come, the vision of blood and carnage of one of the pillars of the Light faction, Hazel Grove Kingdom, and a chance to regain a portion of his suppressed powers, Lucifer decided to intervene, not only giving Mazikeen an incredible force to challenge the city with, he Mazikeen the capability to conjure a portion of his consciousness into a vessel. Lucifer feared Cervantes and his continued rise in strength, and wanted to deal with him at all costs. Knowing that Mazikeen would fall short, he gave her the opportunity to claim revenge by summoning him to the battlefield. Yet the requirements for the vessel who could hold Lucifer's soul were very high, and only someone devoid of vitality, and someone whose soul was already on the verge of death, was someone who could hold Lucifer. Hence a necromancer, which the prophet prophesied to be Prince Amon. Lucifer had told Mazikeen before he dispatched her to this war to construct the tower so that he could keep an eye on the battle and wait for Prince Amon to show up. After that, Mazikeen had to somehow create separation between Cervantes and Amon and get him to the base of the Eye of Lucifer. That's her only job. Apparently Lucifer would do the rest. Long ago in the First Great War between the forces of darkness led by Mazikeen and the First Emperor, it was Mazikeen who tried to become a vessel for Lucifer. But the impure lower birth demon was not a suitable vessel for Lucifer, who could only exert very little of his strength in her body. The true reason of Lucifer wanting to descend to the battlefield personally was unknown, although it seemed like he wanted to avenge the humiliation and suffering of his subject. Anyone who knew Lucifer knew that he was not that type of person, and that he would never do anything that did not profit him. And that was indeed the case. As Lucifer eyed Amon, and a seemingly unassuming NPC fighting a battle on the battlefield, one son of the Archangel Sariel with divine blood flowing through his veins. Meanwhile on the battlefield, Rudra had extended his sphere of influence to 200 meters. As he had largely regained some form of order on the battlefield with the enemy, an undead line clear from ally line, causing the archers to work at full capacity, slaying thousands of troops every second. Rudra was very satisfied with his work, as he could see the tier 4 paladins from the church and Patricia doing their jobs well and pushing the enemy back. However, then suddenly out of nowhere 10 tier 4 generals joined the fight from the side of forces of darkness, largely equalizing the situation, making the fight go into stalemate as the forces of darkness regained some momentum of the battle. If one would take a moment and analyze the battlefield, they would see millions dead, and the entire battlefield dyed red with blood, cut off limbs being littered all across as the air smelled like iron. Why was this war being fought? And who was it benefiting? It were all questions that would surely brain freeze any sane man trying to think the answer behind it. But the real answer to it would be undoubtedly the Blood Merchant organization, and the massive eye towering the battlefield. Only they were winning this war, irrespective of who died. This organization had everything planned, right from the start. However, for some reason or the other, their plans kept getting foiled, causing their hostile takeover of the country to fail every time they tried. Their plan to keep Amon on the throne as a puppet ruler and slowly change him into a vessel of the Dark Lord, completely penetrating the heart of the Light Faction Empire, failed when he was exiled from the country and Cervantes came back in power. But why was the Blood Merchant organization so active in Hazelgrove Kingdom? And why were they so interested in this piece of land? So much so that Lucifer had to scheme behind the scenes and be so heavily involved? Just what was the history between himself and Hazelgrove? / bonus chapter for the super gift by Magnum 932, and also special to him again for the 1000 coin luxury car. Thank him in the comments section for this one. 2 more bonus chapters coming after this today itself. / Chapter 445, Lucifer's Intentions. The reason why Lucifer wants to eliminate Cervantes before he can get any stronger is because of the heritage of his bloodline. The Hazelgrove royal family, although diluted over centuries, has the blood of Archangel Michael flowing through their veins. The first great war which Lucifer waged was also because the moment the first emperor reached tier 5, he was close to awakening the divine blood inside him, very close to achieving true divinity. If Michael gains a tier 6 bloodline descendant added to his ranks, then his half-brother and the strongest angel would have another powerful ally added to his ranks, something that Lucifer absolutely could not let happen. However, what could he do? Being banished from the realm of humans by the 4 archangels and the goddess of life, he was confined to the depths of hell. However, Lucifer was not completely powerless in hell. He was capable of manipulating strings behind the scenes and let his minions do his dirty work. The first time he tried to personally descend on the human realm, Lucifer quickly understood that Mazikeen's body devoid of the divine blood of gods was a massive restriction in him using his true power. He could not even exert 5% of his true power without the vessel exploding. But even then, he was able to critically injure the first emperor, erasing the chances of him gaining divinity. Years passed by, and the Blood Merchant organization started to operate in Hazelgrove Kingdom to try find a royal family member, perfect to be taken as a vessel for the Dark Lord. But the problem with the royal descendants was that they were full of vitality, blessed by the goddess of light, and hence very difficult to be taken over as vessels. Hence started the manipulation by Lucifer, as he plagued Prince Amon's sleep, subconsciously diverting him from the path of righteousness and slowly pushing him towards the art of necromancy, slowly pushing him towards the journey to reduce his vitality. It was Lucifer who manipulated Amon into taking the throne and getting rid of Cervantes. As it looked like everything was set for Lucifer to eventually take over, and changed the constitution of Hazelgrove Kingdom from the inside. However, all that changed with the appearance of the first blood descendant of Archangel Serial. The divinity in his blood much stronger than in Amon's. But the body being too weak at just tier 2 was insufficient for Lucifer to flex his might. Yet his blood, if sacrificed to Lucifer, would greatly increase the power of Lucifer. As except for Michael, Lucifer was the second strongest angel. He could forcefully steal Sariel's powers, under these circumstances completely tilting the balance of power. Yet just when it looked like he would be able to succeed, and Sariel's child's blood would be offered to him, the plan failed. So did the plan of taking over Prince Amon his vessel. Cervantes returned and ascended to tier 5, completely throwing the plans Lucifer had for Amon down the drain. This war was the last thing that Lucifer wanted. But with Cervantes reaching tier 5 it became a necessity. Even though he could not hostile take over Amon's body until Amon physically touched the stone eye. But he gave Mazikeen an immense amount of forces and support to achieve this simple task for him. As in reward for her completing this small task, he would reward her with her revenge on the Hazelgrove Kingdom against Mazikeen. After 5 minutes of consistently being pushed back, Cervantes was extremely calm. Even though he had his hands full at the moment trying to defend himself, and Amon he knew that he could counter-attack at any moment that he wanted to. The attacks were just not fast enough to completely restrain him. Hence when Amon said, "Oh wait, old man, is that all you've got?" A fire lit under Cervantes, who wanted to show his son exactly how strong his mighty father was. As Cervantes started his counterattack, Mazikeen had only one job. That was to blast Cervantes away and somehow drag Amon to the stone eye. But even at the absolute peak of her powers, she was unfortunately no match for Cervantes. The swordsman showed the most beautiful yet terrifying display of true sword arts, as his every moment was powerful enough to split mountains in half. His movements fluid as if he was dancing on ice. Yet his sword swings were incredibly sharp. As Cervantes showed his son just how strong he really was, Cervantes was truly happy to fight beside his own flesh and blood, and genuinely believed that his son was here to support him. Hence in his joy, he was even more enthusiastic in his fight to suppress Mazikeen, who could barely hang on once Cervantes took on the offensive. Amon looked on, with a cold gleam, helping his father when he could, just waiting for the right opportunity to strike. He was a snake in human skin, who believed himself to be the true master of this battlefield. He had tasted what it felt like to steal the power of darkness from Mazikeen once, and believed that he could do it again if she was gravely injured in the fight against his father, as even though he did not show it yet. In the battlefield where death energy was abundant and millions were dead, a necromancer was at his strongest. Lucifer eyed Amon. Amon eyed Mazikeen, and Mazikeen wanted to get rid of Cervantes, who was trying to get rid of Lucifer. It was a complete circle of 4 extremely powerful existences, each with their unique objective. What remained to be seen was who would come out on top. // bonus chapter for the super gift by Adrian Harden. Thank him in the comments for this one, guys. Only one more to go for today, and it will be the best one yet. Coming next, Mega War 8 Pandemonium. Hope you all enjoy. // Chapter 446 Mega War 8 Pandemonium. Cervantes gained momentum in his fight against Mazikeen when Mazikeen made a slip up and missed her attack by a minuscule distance, creating a small opening for Cervantes to exploit. Cervantes dished out a back heel spin kick, sending Mazikeen flying into the distance, crashing into multiple trees as she snapped it in half. This was the opening that Cervantes needed to shift from defense to offense as he and Amon took the aggressive from that point onwards, giving Mazikeen a hard time. The longer the fight went on, the more obvious Mazikeen's disadvantage was. She was slower, weaker, and overall less proficient than Cervantes in fighting. And unless she could keep dishing out high damage moves, she would be unable to fight with him on equal terms. However, continuously dishing out high damage moves was impossible for Mazikeen, who was slowly wearing herself out. The fact that she was put under defensive already rang alarm bells in her mind, as she knew she could only hang on about 10-15 minutes more. Mazikeen could not kill Amon. This was her biggest disadvantage in the fight, as just like Cervantes, when he was fighting all those tier 4 generals on her side, Mazikeen also found multiple opportunities to kill Amon like a fly. But she could not, although it seemed to Cervantes that he was defending his son. In reality, it was easier for Mazikeen to kill him than to send Cervantes away. The moment where her movements started to get slower and the fatigue caught up to her, she knew that the end was near. Hence, she went into power-saving mode, as she knew that there was only one way to send Cervantes away from Amon, and that was for Cervantes to leave voluntarily. However, Mazikeen knew the soft spot of Cervantes, a weakness that she could exploit. which was the subjects of Hazelgrove Kingdom, for whom Cervantes cares a lot. Hence, in the most sinister of plans, Mazikeen decided to use her ultimate unevadable move to threaten exactly the thing Cervantes loved: his people. Completely disregarding defense, she let the 2 sword slashes from Cervantes hit her, as she took considerable damage from the move. However, looking up towards the sky, with a face full of evil grin, Mazikeen started to channel incredible amounts of mana. Cervantes instantly realized what she was trying to do, and became alarmed. He set multiple attacks towards Mazikeen, but it was too late, as the very mana in the air became a torrent of wind, which encapsulated Mazikeen, defending her from all external attacks. Mazikeen chanted something in ancient Draconian, as she looked towards the sky, seemingly inviting something. The ultimate tier 5 move that could destroy entire kingdoms. The spell to summon a giant meteorite the size of a city, invented by ancient dragons in their fight against the dinosaurs, thought to be lost in time. The spell's name Pandemonium. Mazikeen was completely covered in Earth's mana, as the vertex of mana extended from above her body and shot towards the sky. Moments later, a flaming meteorite the size of Purple Haze City was seen in the skies of Hazelgrove Kingdom. The temperature on the surface was rapidly rising, as everyone stopped fighting, looking up towards the sky. Demons and humans alike, feeling the definite threat of death. Rudra, looking at the sky, had Excalibur drop down from his hands, as his only thought was, "It's over." The moment the vortex of mana stopped spinning around Mazikeen, a series of terrifying sword slashes absolutely mangled her, dropping her HP to under 2%, as it seemed like she was barely breathing, not even having the strength to stand up anymore. However, the grin never left her face. With this, her revenge on Hazelgrove Kingdom was complete. Amon also felt the fear in his bones when he looked at the sky, as he could not comprehend how someone could use such a strong spell. There were various meteorite spells, but most were the size of a football field. Any larger were unheard of. This meteorite was just incomparable to anything he had ever seen. Cervantes was rushing towards Purple Haze City, the mana of the earth gathering around him. As he built momentum with every step that he took, he knew that he would have to give it all to stop this meteorite, or rather lessen the casualties by saving as many as he could. The moment he was directly under the meteorite, Cervantes coiled and jumped into the air, jumping to the height of 2 kilometers, and at the peak of his ascend, he used his ultimate move, Dimensional Slash. About 1,000,000 sword cuts that could rip apart the very fabric of space were unleashed by Cervantes, which looked like purple streams of thin light leaving his sword. The moment these sword energies hit the meteorite, it segmented the massive meteorite into a lot of smaller pieces about the size of a man, scattered across all directions, about 95% having a trajectory missing Purple Haze City. But Cervantes could alas do nothing about the bottom 5%. He himself barely had energy left after unleashing this move, as he did not even bother to slow down his descent, simply crashing down with his eyes open as he saw the meteorite descend on his city. Rudra looked with mouth agape as the entire battlefield was pelted with small and big meteorites, killing millions of humans and demons alike. The wall he so dearly defended being showered with stones, blowing large holes in the impeccable structure at various points, while the elves standing on it were buried under rubble, countless elites dead, as he himself was blasted away from a shockwave of a meteorite that landed a few meters away from him, the debris giving him a nasty cut, making his forehead bleed. Rudra was down to 40% HP and his ears were ringing. But in reality, it was his heart that ached even more, as the moment he stood up and saw behind his back, he saw a Purple Haze City up in flames. Purple Haze City, his city, the city millions lost their lives to defend, was up in flames, and this was without a single enemy getting past him. There were NPC running all across the streets, children crying and mothers desperately trying to get their children to safety, many buried under the rubble, many caught by the fire. The city was up in smokes, and it was sheer chaos. Rudra looked around to see others equally confused and disarrayed, everyone with a yellow or red HP bar, trying to figure out what to do now. // special shout out to Cervantes 91 for the 10,000 coin gift, and to Omar Alsheikh for the 15,000 coin gift. I don't have words, guys, of how much I appreciate the support. As of now, the two of you are my book's #1 and 2 fans, and this support really makes me excited to produce even better content for you guys. As with every super gift, there will be a bonus chapter. Hence, there are 2 more chapters to come today. But because of the overwhelming support you all have shown my book this month, I will add one more as gratitude. Enjoy. // Chapter 447 Mega War 9, The Conflict. Rudra saw a few demons trying to hobble their way into Purple Haze City through the part of the wall where there was a giant hole, and at that moment he snapped. Rudra used Darkness Absorb on one of the demon, regaining his HP, while mercilessly draining the demon of his remaining one, while used Darkness Bind on the other three, and killed them by slicing them in half. Rudra had decided at that very moment that he would defend his city till the very end, till there was a single building standing and a single NPC to protect behind the wall. He would fight. None of the demons were getting past him even with the wall broken. The sentiment inside the battlefield completely changed once the massive meteorite crashed. Both demons and humans lost a large chunk of their armies, and not many were in the mood to fight anymore, as hundreds of thousands abandoned the battlefield. However, the abandonees on the human side were way more than on the demon side, as the demons had no place to hide should they go back into hell as a deserter. Although NPC soldiers also showed discipline, the same could not be said for the player force. Guilds abandoned the battlefield by the hundreds, as hardly any players chose to carry out their duties. They were done with the war. Their will shattered alongside the massive meteorite. The archers who were on the ground and still alive from the Elven Kingdom were a well-trained and disciplined army, and they shook the incident off and started to horizontally shoot arrows. The elites too got back up one by one, and when they saw their guild leader defend the biggest hole in the wall alone against a swarm of demons, they too felt that irrespective of the circumstances, the war was not yet over, and the job was not yet done. Robin rallied his troops to defend the parts of the wall that had broken down, while the elites formed tight clusters around them. Even in this situation where there were 7 parts of the wall where the wall had caved, the elites chose to defend it. Karna took one hole. Nitwit took another. Medivh covered 3, and Robin took over 1. The fight from here on out was going to be incredibly difficult. However, Rudra wanted to fight to the end. No! He needed to fight to the end, as monetary loss could be recouped. However, territorial loss was terrifying. Even in flames, this city was his city. If he lost it, the guild would no longer have a place to call home. Probably the only person who was affected more than Rudra was Cervantes, who was seething in rage. Not at the circumstance, but his inability to save his people. Although rage consumed his mind, his body still refused to move, as the backlash of using the move rendered him unable to move, as he had overstrained his body in a 3-meter crater in the ground that was created by him falling from great height. He could only stare at the sky, as at least for the moment, he needed to take some time to get his body moving again. Meanwhile, Mazikeen. Even at 2% HP, Mazikeen was not someone that Amon could trifle with. However, with her using her ultimate spell, she too was unable to perform proper movement, barely able to stand on her own 2 feet. The situation could not be any better for Amon, who leisurely walked towards Mazikeen, preparing the forbidden spell to absorb her powers. Amon used Darkness Bind, and completely constricted Mazikeen's movement. If Mazikeen was at even 10% of her strength, she could have shook these vines off as if they were nothing. But currently she was so weak that she could do nothing but be constricted. Amon came in extremely close to Mazikeen, and ran his hands through her hair, putting one strand of hair that was blocking her face back behind her ear, as he pulled her chin up to meet his gaze. Looking into her eyes, Amon plunged his hand inside her gut, as he started the process of making her strength her own. Amon's levels skyrocketed, as he continued to absorb Mazikeen's powers. What would have taken him decades was now happening within minutes, as he used Mazikeen as a stepping stone to him rising in power. Mazikeen wailed in pain and anguish. As for every level that Amon gained, she lost too, as slowly she dropped a tear. The moment her level hit below 240, the strength in her body went limp, as she was almost an undead. Now Amon, being the stronger one of the two, not only did not even provide his prey the mercy to die, but chose to convert her into his puppet. However, just before Mazikeen's consciousness faded, she played her last card, as she mumbled, "You will never be able to touch Lucifer." A taunt, and a smug grin was all Mazikeen could muster before her consciousness was wiped out by Amon, and she was turned into a necromancer's puppet. Although Amon could not break past into Tier 5 by absorbing Mazikeen's power, he was nearly 30% stronger than he was before, which was a huge gain for him. Death was abundant inside the battlefield. It was the perfect time for a necromancer's to shine. Amon started to work his way, as the dead would rise again wherever he passed, reviving hundreds of thousands, as he expanded his forces. Since he knew that he could only control a few, he made sure to make the weaker ones mindless idiots who only knew how to kill, be it their own kind or the enemy. The banished prince finally started to show his real colors. However, Mazikeen's last words kept reverberating in his brain, and hence, he decided to destroy the ugly Eye of Lucifer before getting his revenge on Purple Haze City. / bonus chapter for the super gift by Omar Alsheikh. Thank him in the comments for this one, guys. / Chapter 448 Mega War 10 Wrath of the Elites. The moment the dead humans and demons started to move on the battlefield, Rudra knew that Amon had picked his spot to bring the fight to Hazelgrove Kingdom. Rudra had already informed Patricia to be ready at any moment to rally all troops in front of the walls, with the holy priests and paladins especially present to deal with the undead. And his thinking was spot on, as Amon turned a huge chunk of the dead into mindless creatures who only knew how to attack everyone except its kind. A leaderless force of darkness was its first target, as the demons and undead came into direct conflict. As Patricia rallied all the surviving 1 million soldiers and 500,000 paladins towards the wall, behind the elite's safety line of 200 meters. The elites had enough at this point. They were sick of conflict and their minds had given in to the bloodlust. As the entire guild fiercely fought off any approaching enemy, Rudra was tired of not being in command, and he decided that F*** military rules. He was going to be in charge now. As he looked towards Patricia and said in all solemnity, "This is my division now." Patricia looked stunned for a moment, but after gathering her thoughts, she immediately removed her general's badge and gave it to Rudra. Rudra took the badge and put it on his lieutenant's robe and shouted, "All right, listen well, 'cause I am only going to say it once. Elites, we are the front line. We push the enemies back, from here to the woods. I don't want a single demon or undead left alive. Paladins, you are the second line of attack. Ready your spears and stay 15 meters behind the front line. No undead should pass by you alive. Hazelgrove Kingdom soldiers, you will be the third line of attack, and no demon should slip past you alive. Elves, you are the last line of defense, and the one manning the walls. I expect aerial support, and in case someone slips by, you end them before they cross the 200-meter line. Is that clear, guys?" The other Tier 4 generals looked at Rudra and thought, who the hell was he to order them around? But the elves respected Rudra. The church considered him a hero, and he was the leader of the elites, coupled with being a Duke of Hazelgrove Kingdom and a lieutenant in the army. Although not the most senior, he did have the qualifications to command the army. Robin was the first to say, "We understand, General," followed by the church paladins who said, "We understand, Honorary Bishop." The elite said, "We won't let you down, Guild Master." And Patricia said, "Yes, General." Although reluctant, all the lieutenants that were still alive decided that internal fight was pointless, and Rudra was known to be a legendary tactician, hence they decided to follow him. As the voices came, "The 3rd Division complies. The 5th Division complies. The 17th Division complies." The very few independent players and guilds also joined the Hazelgrove soldier forces and bolstered the number count. The army quickly rearranged into 4 wide lines covering the entire battlefield, 15 meters apart from one another, with the thinnest line being the first line, getting thicker in second and thickest at third. Rudra said, "Elites, don't let me down here today. This is the fight for our home city, and these are the people responsible for its current state. No mercy." Karna repeated, "In no mercy." The army shouted, "In no mercy." The war drum started to beat. As a rhythmic march started, the Hazelgrove forces decided to push back the battle lines. The demons, who were already struggling with the undead, now faced a unified human army pressing against them. As the elites were absolute maniacs, who only left blood and body parts in their wake as they tore through the enemy forces. The 7 holes in Purple Haze city wall were left gaping open, without a single man defending it. But not a single enemy was able to come into even 400-meter radius of the walls. The elites killed 50% of the enemy. Out of 150 could not get past their front line, and 25 more fell by the hands of the paladins, and 20 more fell by the hands of the Hazelgrove army soldiers. Only a few managed to get past the lines, only to be pummeled with 100 arrows before they could even take a single step. A synchronized march to the war beats, with an army that was drowning its sorrows of lost comrades and loved ones with mindless slaughter. It was unclear who was the demons anymore, as there was only a killing machine wiping the battlefield. The demons screamed and the demons died, as Rudra walked with 2,000 mana legion soldiers, alone swatting away tier 3 captains as if they were flies. The elven sword was dyed in a red, as it continued to drip of blood. The army followed the leader's example. The leader was always an influential figure, as the morale of the troops depended on his performance. Since Rudra was unstoppable, the others were also in killing spirits, as everyone put fatigue aside and went all out with their assault, giving the enemies a very hard time. Billions watching worldwide saw an incredible scene, as Rudra managed to slowly rally a disoriented battlefield of utter chaos into a one-sided slaughter, with the elites being on the forefront of it all. Meanwhile Amon was frowning, as he could feel the connection to more and more of his undead being terminated. His army was being wiped as if they were nothing, which was extremely concerning. Amon thought for a moment, then created 5 bone golems of massive size, and sent them to deal with the situation on the battlefield. As he looked eye to eye to the one eye of Lucifer, Amon could not understand why, but it was like his very blood seemed to hate everything about Lucifer. His presence irked him, hence gathering mana in his staff. Amon prepared to blast the stone tower to pieces. / bonus chapter for the super gift by Cervantes 91. Sorry for it being late. It's a new month, guys. And I will declare the bonus scheme for this month. 500 golden tickets equals 1 bonus chapter. 5,000 power stones equals 1 bonus chapter. 1 super gift equals 1 bonus chapter. The normal chapter rate will be 10 chapters a week, without bonuses. / Chapter 449 War 11, the Emperor has not yet fallen. Cervantes shrugged off the multiple muscle spasms he was currently feeling as he dragged his ragged body towards the battlefield. But the moment he laid his eyes on the current situation, he wished that he would not have gotten up. The undead were running wild on the battlefield. Supported by 5 massive golems, they were troubling the soldiers from his kingdom, while most of the undead were the once killed Hazelgrove army soldiers. Cervantes knew at that moment that it was Amon's doing. But as a father, he was just not ready to accept that fact. Although he was always harsh on Amon, the fact remained that he loved him dearly. And even after sending him to exile, Cervantes always cared for him, hoping that he could redeem himself someday. Even though he descended in the battlefield as an even more progressed necromancer than before, Cervantes was only proud of his accomplishments, thinking of letting everything be bygone, and even gain heat with the church by letting him back into the kingdom. However, his dreams were cut short. His son had not changed. He was still harming his people. As an emperor, Cervantes could not let it happen. However, as a father, it tore his heart. Putting his face between his hands, Cervantes sat down for a minute, trying to gather his thoughts and make his resolve about ending this for once and for all, by giving Amon what he deserved, which was death. Meanwhile, Rudra's POV. The moment the 5 giant golems entered the battlefield, Rudra became alert. These creatures were not stone golems, making them light and comparatively more mobile. They could actually avoid attacks instead of taking it all like a tank. However, they still had incredibly high amounts of HP, and were perfect to break enemy lines and give an opening for troops. Rudra knew that he needed to get rid of the golems first before he could continue his assault on the undead. However, the problem was that he did not have the means to deal with all 5. The strength of the golems was their defense, and the weakness was their lack of offensive capabilities. Unlike stone golems, who had their massive weight to rely on to crush people, bone golems were weaker in offense, meaning that with sustained damage they would fall. Rudra decided that it was best to slowly retreat and keep damaging the golems from distance, and let them fall below 30% before engaging in a charge. But the problem was the undead. The brainless creatures just kept swarming the front lines irrespective of Rudra advancing or retreating, making it hard for the elites to retreat safely. Also, the golem's speed made it hard for the elites to really create distance, which made the plan to retreat pointless. Rudra knew that if the golems tanked the damage for the other troops, then the thin front line of the elites would crumple very soon. However, with retreating out of the option, only holding the lines was an option. Unfortunately, he was too far out of the city for Medivh to provide any sort of protection, like he did with the dragons. Rudra really did not want to use his second and last solar beam on defeating a single golem, knowing that the war was still not over, and unknown dangers lurked until it was. However, against the golems he felt hard-pressed. Even his own sword slashes just created a HP loss of 1500 against the bone golem, against a massive pool of 1.5 million horsepower points, much less the normal elites, who could barely dish out 200, which was a huge issue. In the next 2 minutes, a lot of elites found themselves in red HP bar, and a few even died, as the advance of the bone golems caused a disarray in the front lines formation, leaving troops open to assault by the undead. Thankfully, Patricia and 2 other senior tier 4 paladins stepped up looking at the situation, and started to hold back 3 bone golems, while Rudra along with his 2,000 strong mana legion held off 1, and Neatwit and Karna inside Hume's buff range held off the last one. It was an uphill battle for everyone, as even the tier 4 warriors could only shave off a maximum of 6,000 horsepower with their normal moves, and coming so deep into the war, they were already on reserve stamina, barely having enough gas in the tank to keep fighting, much less dish out the big moves. However, at this moment, 5 scarlet-blue sword slashes descended from the sky, splitting the bone golems in half. When one looked above, they could see the Emperor, who was calmly standing on what appeared to be a purple cloud. As a voice boomed across the battlefield, which was Cervantes's, as he said, "Don't worry. The Emperor has not yet fallen." Cheers reigned amongst the troops, as there was newfound energy to fight. The Emperor was with him. With him around, what was there to fear anymore? Virtually. With Mazikeen gone, the rout of the enemy forces was only a matter of time for Cervantes. But with him barely having any energy left, he was already stretching himself, trying to move his upper body. Although he looked cool standing on a magical floating device, the truth of the situation was that he could not even move his legs properly. Should he actually try to run around in the battlefield currently, he would probably stumble after taking 5 steps. That's how sore his muscles felt to him. However, unwilling to stay down while his people were in trouble, and unwilling to show his moment of weakness, Cervantes stood high in the skies, as steady as Mount Tai, giving hope to win to the people. Meanwhile, Amon stopped conjuring the darkness blast spell, as he looked disturbed. The connection between him and the bone golems was cut off. He knew immediately that the only one who could take 5 of them out in an instant together was only Cervantes. In spite of him gaining immense strength today, he was not tier 5, and unfortunately hence not strong enough to survive a confrontation with his father. Amon felt a chill run down his spine, thinking that his father probably figured out that he was up to no good, and did not rule out the possibility of him coming for his life. At first Amon thought about fleeing, but a voice deep inside his consciousness told him a crazy idea. An idea so ridiculous that on any other day Amon would have not rushed into it. But drunk on the feeling of rapidly gaining powers by absorbing someone else's powers, and being uncertain about his very father taking his life, a dark thought creeped inside Amon's mind. The thought being, can I steal the power of Lucifer? Staring at the giant stone tower, Amon wondered if he could take this opportunity to steal the powers from the Lord of Darkness himself. // Shout out to Omar Al-Sheikh for the 5,000 coin super gift. The repeated support you have shown the book over the last few days is incredible. My heartfelt gratitude for that. As with every super gift, there will be a bonus chapter. So thank him in the comments, guys. // Chapter 450 Mega War 12 Defiance. Amon had no time to contemplate, but he was really tired of living his life in hiding. He had carefully schemed for his grand return to Hazelgrove Kingdom, rallying his troops from the time he got news that Hazelgrove Kingdom was having a war. Using the terrain knowledge of the kingdom, he was able to avoid areas with massive population to move undercover. Added with the fact that most of the troops were called over from all over the kingdom towards the capital, it was safe to say that the security of the kingdom was not top-notch at the moment. Also, the few that did discover him were not left alive to tell the tale. His goal was to finish the unfinished task of absorbing Mazikeen's powers to ascend. But even though he succeeded in that, unfortunately for him, he could not ascend to tier 5. Apparently the forbidden technique was only efficient in absorbing a maximum of 50% of the enemy's powers up till the power balance existed. Hence, for every level that he gained, Mazikeen lost 2. Until their level difference became 0, and Mazikeen was reduced to tier 4. But tier 4 was not enough for Amon to contend with his father, which meant that everything he did up till now was for naught, and that he would have to run for his life, like a mice being chased by an eagle, which he was extremely reluctant to do. Making up his mind, Amon dared to challenge God himself, as he put his hand on the stone statue, using the forbidden spell to try steal Lucifer's powers. Meanwhile, on Hell's throne, Lucifer was having wine on his throne, as he was amused by the scenes of humans fighting amongst themselves, even though he was not fighting himself, and could only watch the entertainment from behind a screen. Just that alone had a massive effect on the weak human ants, who got a massive debuff. But overall the war was not very interesting for Lucifer, who was disappointed once he saw how strong Cervantes had become, and how inadequate his pawn Mazikeen was to deal with him. Lucifer became uninterested in the fight. It was not like he cared about tier 5 kids anyway. The only reason he paid special attention to Cervantes was because they had angel blood in his veins. Lucifer was however greatly amused by Sariel's son struggling on the battlefield, and the arrival of the brat Amon. But what made him really chuckle was the fact that Amon tried to steal his powers. Lucifer did not understand whether to laugh or to laugh like a madman, as he found the actions of the human brat too entertaining. Just a frog who doesn't know how high the summit of power was, and who he was trying to steal power from. The Lord of Darkness and the supreme ruler of all demonkind. The one labeled evil Lord Satan. The one the 7 sins bow heads before. The fallen angel Lucifer. The brat was trying to forcefully take his powers? Initially Lucifer felt like instantly taking over Amon's body, and using it to hunt Cervantes and Sariel's son, and drink their blood. But then he felt like humoring the kid a little, and let him taste a piece of true power. Lucifer was sure that even a sliver of his true mana would probably fry the brat's mana circuit, and corrupt his body with darkness forever. It would be intense suffering for Amon. But for Lucifer it would be fun to watch. And it's not like he could not kill Cervantes later, with a fried body. Hence Lucifer decided to send just a sliver of his true mana to Amon along with a message of, "Know your place, mortal." Meanwhile Rudra's POV. With Cervantes on the cloud occasionally lending out 1 or 2 sword strikes to wipe thousands. The tide of the battle changed completely. The demons were nearly completely annihilated, as they could not be spotted on the battlefield unless one looked really hard. And the undead were quickly losing numbers as well, as it looked as if the end was near. Rudra estimated that at the current rate it would take him half an hour more to wipe the entire undead forces. Hence, he went into power-saving mode. As just as this fight was going to be finished, he was going to personally go hunt Prince Amon. He did not care that Amon was tier 4 and way stronger than him. At worst he would die, lose experience, and wake up in the Church of Light. But not before sending a solar beam through Amon's gut. He was not finishing this war until he did that. However, Rudra was not aware of the changes occurring inside the person he was silently cursing, as Lucifer's true mana of darkness entered the body of Amon, compatible with the aura of death. It created a result that even Lucifer did not expect. The two energies were somewhat symbiotic and resonated amongst each other, spiking the mana levels inside Amon's body to unprecedented highs, as the divinity inside Amon's blood was triggered, which started to counter the aura of death by the aura of life, preventing Amon from exploding from excess energy. Michael, the strongest angel, suddenly felt a connection as he looked down from the heavens, as a power much similar to his own was awakened in a mortal. Immediately Michael knew that this human was some form of descendant of his. But upon inspecting he felt gloomy, as he realized that Lucifer was looking right at him with an evil grin. His descendants was apparently trying to steal Lucifer's powers. And Michael did not understand whether he should be happy at the kid's courage, or beat him for his stupidity, as the brat was quite literally dancing with the devil. // Special shout out to Fana Sturblich for the 500 coin gift and Adrian Harden for the 2000 coin gift. Thanks a lot for the patronage. Bonus chapter is promised for the super gift by Omar Alsheikh. Thank him in the comments section for this one, guys. We currently stand at 355 golden tickets. Hence hopefully we can touch 500 tomorrow and have a bonus for hitting the first golden ticket target for the month. //